Jim.
Sure, I can do that.
Oh, I meant this.
Good evening. Welcome to the Raleigh Board of Selectmen meeting of March 16th, 2015. It is now 7:03, and I call this meeting to order. I'm sorry, 6:03.
Mr. Chairman, there's a sign-in sheet if you could make an announcement that.
Okay, yes, and any visitors here that haven't signed in already could sign in first. That'd be appreciated.
Open meeting.
At 6 p.m., we have scheduled a joint meeting with the Board of Water Commissioners and an executive session, collective bargaining grievance hearing, AFSCME Council 93, Local 2905, collective bargaining strategies, AFSCME Council 93, Local 2905. A class action grievance filed by AFSCME Council 93, Local 2905, against Water Board member Timothy Toomey.
Okay, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman, now, if the Water Board could now call their meeting to order in open
Okay.
session, please?
Yep. With the Water Board,
Water Board calls a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order by roll call vote.
I, Stu Delzo.
Roy Ricker.
Tim Toomey.
okay, the Board of Selectmen. Chairman Murray calls for a joint meeting with the Water Board Commission by order, to order by a roll call vote. All those in favor of entering executive session by roll call vote?
I, Joe Perry.
I, Robert Snow.
Aye, Robert Murray.
I, Dave Peterson.
So we are now in joint session, executive session.
Mr. Chairman, we still
Yep.
need
Close it.
the full motion, if you would, on the,
Okay, all right, I see what you said, Joe. Yep.
and then we need a corresponding motion from the water board as well.
Yep. The chairman of the selectmen calls for a motion to go into executive session for the following purpose: to conduct a collective bargaining session and to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town, and to return to open session.
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded by roll call vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I, Joe
Aye.
Perry.
I, Robert Snow.
Aye, Robert
Dave
Murray.
Peterson.
And the Water Board, Chairman Ricker calls for a motion to go into executive session for the following purpose: to conduct a collective bargaining session and to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town, and to return to open session at 7:15.
So, Mr. Chairman Mary, if Mr. Ricker could make that, call for that motion as, Written.
Make a motion to go into collective bargaining session and discuss strategies in respect to collective bargaining, because no meeting may have neutral effect on the bargaining position of the town. Return to open session at 7:15.
Second.
Right.
Roll call vote, Roy Ricker.
Stu Delzo. Tim Toomey.
So at this point, we are in executive session. Are we still live?
Yes. Here we go.
And welcome to the Raleigh Board of Selectmen meeting, the time being 7:13. We have a open meeting session now, and we have an appointment with Steve Comley to discuss Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant evacuation concerns, excuse me. Mr. Comley has submitted a package outlining his concerns with the status of the Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant and the evacuation plans outlined by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Mr. Comley brings up many safety concerns over the nuclear power plant. Okay, Steve, if you could kind of cut this a little bit short. We are running about 15 minutes behind at this point.
Say again, sorry.
I mean, if you could kind of speed this up a little bit. We are running behind at this point.
Yeah. I'll do what I can.
Okay.
I'll try and sum up the 27 years we've been at it.
Well, if you could cut it down to 14 would be in good shape.
14 minutes?
14 years.
Oh, 14 years. Well, I've got some new stuff too, so we'll start out. First, were you able to go, each one of you gone through all the material? Were you each able to do that?
We have taken a look at it.
So each one of you have,
I'm
right?
not sure we've read it word for word, but we have looked at it.
Uh-huh. Did you get a chance to look at the DVDs?
I did not.
I didn't.
You didn't? Well, I'm sorry to hear that, because those DVDs, CNN did a 1.5-year investigation of We the People's work, and they were shown on Earth Matters. And I even got a call from Egypt, by the way, when that was shown. And the reason why I really wanted you to see them is because it's very compelling to show what whistleblowers are willing to do to get the truth out to the American people. And some of them have lost their careers for 35-year career, and obviously they've lost the financial ability to even take care of their own family. But they wanted to make that sacrifice to get the message out to the American people. And they have often said to me, Mr. Conley, you know how we feel sometimes? And I said, no, please tell me. We feel like roadkill because people in Washington don't listen to us. And, you know, that's pretty sad. All right, well, to get started here. All right, first of all, I think you've seen this. Nuclear safety and health, counterfeit substandard products are a government-wide concern. I was first given that evidence in 1987 by people inside the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and also in the industry. And I gave it firsthand to President Reagan because I believed in him. And I'm a lifelong member of the Republican Inner Circle, so I figured, you know, I thought he would act on it. And unfortunately, he didn't. So, and I went to Seabrook, and I asked him, I said, I know that you have counterfeit substandard parts in your plant, and that's when PSNH owned it. Now Florida Power and Light owns it. Their public relations person said on camera that they had no such parts in their plant. Then 2 years later, the Government Accounting Office came out with this report, and they listed Seabrook in here. And they listed 71 other plants in it. And there's other plants since then that have been getting these bogus parts. And now they're coming in from China because we exposed so many of the U.S. vendors that they went out of business. So the owners of Seabrook lied to the public. And now Florida Power and Light owns them. And also Florida Power and Light owns 4 plants in Florida. And they were listed. All 4 of their plants in Florida have been built with counterfeit substandard parts. Now, I've been trying to find out a long time from Seabrook and other plants that were listed here. I asked the NRC, could you provide me with a list of the counterfeit substandard parts that were in the Seabrook nuclear plant? And I want to know what parts they were and when did they replace them. And if they didn't replace them, I want to know why. Now, I've been trying to find out this out for a long time. Now, as you may or may not know, I testified at the NRC hearing in Hampton, New Hampshire, December 18th, 2013. And I called the Globe, and I thought that was a pretty important meeting for them to cover. And that was a week before the hearing. And their Globe North reporter told us that they're not going to cover the hearing. And I said, why? They said it's out of our area. And I asked them, I said, you certainly heard of the Japanese plant that affected the air in Mass, and Chernobyl affected our cow's milk in Vermont. I don't know how you can do that. I think it's important for people to know that they could testify at this hearing, which the NRC was taking testimony on whether they should extend Seabrook's license from 2030 to 50, beyond the time that they were planned to be decommissioned. And so I objected to that. Well, after that hearing, the NRC sent me a letter February 12th. And they sent me a 7-page letter. So I wasn't satisfied with their reply, so I wrote them a letter July 4th of 2014. And in there, I asked them to give me a list of those parts that are replaced or not replaced, and if they weren't, why? And they gave me an answer, and it's on page 8 of this packet that you have. And the NRC said this. Regarding your request for a list of counterfeit and substandard parts replaced or not replaced at Seabrook Station, the NRC does not retain such a list. I mean, we're not talking about a donut shop here. In Florida, then they go on and say Florida Power and Light has a corrective action system to address the identification and correction of any such equipment. Unfortunately, Florida Power and Light didn't own the plant when the counterfeit substandard parts were listed. So I don't think they even know. And nobody's kept the list. And unfortunately, when the executive director of the NRC, after we got 80% of the town on a petition, I asked to meet with him about Raleigh rising up and objecting to the NRC not addressing their concerns. He got in touch with me, wouldn't meet with me, but he told me to leave a resident at Seaview behind if she was special needs and give her a bottle of potassium iodine to drink. And that's what got me going. Because that makes a certain segment of a population expendable. And I want you to understand where I fit in on this one. Because when I was about 6 years old in Beverly, when my mother was running a small nursing home in Beverly, she told Linda and I, my sister, she says, always respect your elders, always love them, and always give them opportunities, no matter what age they are or what condition they're in. And then my own government tells me, as a nursing home administrator, like my son now is, to leave residents behind and give them a bottle of iodine to drink if we can't move them. So that told me how far the industry and this agency is willing to go to keep this industry alive. And it's disgraceful. And it was disgraceful for President Reagan especially to ignore 80% of a town in America, Raleigh. And I am so proud of this town. And you've seen the signs, and 80% of the town signed it in '86, and the President of the United States ignored us, along with a whole bunch of them in Congress. And I found out why they do. Because the nuclear industry, lobbyists, fill their political war chests. That's why. Now, Raleigh has an opportunity to send a message right across the United States that when a federal agency and an industry jeopardize every single thing that we've worked for and love, this town stands up. And that's what's wrong in this country, big time. A lot of people complain about the way Washington is being run. But how many people are getting involved to change it? And our forefathers, died, giving us the freedoms that we don't always use. And we don't have any excuse. So if people are complaining without getting involved, it's wrong. I've had a couple of, now, I've asked you to put the language of this national petition in the warrant. so the people of Raleigh can speak out again. And you have an opportunity to put Raleigh back on the map. And you know, this petition here is gonna be for the first responders in Raleigh. And first responders, fire people, especially police right now, are getting a real bad rap across America. Because I know 99.99% of the police officers in this country need to be respected, not shot at, because you never really understand how important they are. We all know and heard stories about a state police or a town cop stopping somebody for a violation, and they walk up to a window and they've been shot with a sawed-off shotgun. And maybe, you know, maybe this can't be done, but maybe what needs to be done is for people sometimes to really respect them and stand up for them, is to maybe have the fire department and the police take a day off in America. Then they'd respect it.
We would be
Now,
a little close on the time here, so,
Pardon, how are we doing?
well, we've got 13 minutes ticked off already.
Okay, so I got two more, right?
Yep. Now, what do you really want from us? What are you looking for?
Well, I want to read you this first, all right? I'm looking for you to put the vote on, voting to approve the petition and put it on the town warrant for the May 4th town meeting, so that Raleigh can have a voice in this again, like they did before. And this petition is going to be, it wants to be signed by only the first responders, current and past ones, in Raleigh. And it's going to say, we, with a petition, they're asking for an investigation of the NRC, and we're asking President Obama, Vice President Biden, the Speaker, and members of Congress to create an independent commission to investigate the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And therefore, we, the undersigned first responders of the town of Raleigh, want to recognize in memory and honor fellow first responder, veteran, and former sheriff, Charlie Hardy. And former police chief Kevin Barry's already signed it, and others have told me they want to sign it. And I'm going to be talking with, Sheriff Cousins, you already know, and both minority leaders in both Massachusetts houses, Senator Tarr and Representative Hill, and Sheriff Cousins, have endorsed We the People's call for the NRC to hold a hearing before the Massachusetts and New Hampshire State Police and the chiefs of police around the 10-mile radius of Seabrook. And I want to ask them this question. If the Seabrook nuclear plant had an accident during the summer months, July 4th, or, hey, I wonder what would happen if they had one during the storm. Now, if it's found out that the first responders, the one that are asked to go if there's a meltdown at that plant, if they say there's no way that they can evacuate the people safely in time, then we got to take their license. Because I know this much, if the life safety of Massachusetts went up to my son's nursing home and they found that he didn't have adequate evacuation plans, it's 365 days a year, they take his license, and they take energetics too. So right now we got a double standard for the Seabrook plant and the nuclear industry. The Seabrook plant, the NRC are in violation of their own policies, because in order for that plant to have been licensed, the only reason why it was licensed is because of Sununu. Because when Dukakis went against the evacuation plan, Sununu come out and said, well, I think we ought to reduce it to 1 mile. And he's the only one that got that plant licensed was Victor Stello, because he went to one-step licensing. And believe me, all that's coming out. So I think what we need to find out, before there's an accident, we need the opinion of the first responders to have a voice. And I had a state trooper come to me, 30-year state trooper. He came to me and he says, there's a gag order on Massachusetts State Police right now. that they are not to have any opinion and make no statements about whether they believe the evacuation plan is safe. Now, isn't that wonderful? And he's given his name to me, and he says I can release it. And I will release it. But I'd like him to come out publicly, too. And I think he will. He's willing to. But right now is a gag order. And you know, he has families. And I also have been told that the National Guard has got a gag order on them, too. And I think that came out of the Sununu administration. He's a disgrace to this country. And he and I know each other quite well. I'm going to wrap it up by this. Now, and am I angry? Oh, you bet your life I'm angry. And I have a right to be angry. And so do all the first responders. They take them for granted. Now, I was out, Mr. Biden, I heard he was at the Massachusetts, Manchester Community College. And I had an acquaintance of mine that wanted to write a letter and tell Mr. Biden about We the People's work and encourage him to meet with me. And he went to the college. And he found out later on that the event that Vice President Biden was invited to, he was invited to be the guest of honor to speak at a roundtable discussion about how to cut costs at colleges so more people can attend. So this student took the time to write a letter to get involved in his government in a serious issue that he felt strongly about, and get the letter to Biden. Then he finds out that the event was closed to the public and it was closed to the students. So he got the idea, I'll go to the chief of security of the college and ask him if he's willing to try and give it to Biden. So what happened is the letter finally got to the Secret Service, part of the entourage that traveled with Biden. And the Secret Service tore the letter up. Can you believe it? And I just went to the New Hampshire GOP because I'm a life member of the Republican Inner Circle, whatever the heck that means. And I went there, I heard Walker was coming from Wisconsin. So I walk in, it's at the Concord High School in Concord, and I went up and I go in, and they said, what's your name? And I gave them my name, and they said, well, you aren't listed. I said, what do you mean I'm not listed? Oh, you got to have an invitation to come here. Oh, well, I said, I'm a life member of the Republican Inner Circle. And I said, aren't the public invited? I think the public wants to hear what Governor Walker is going to run for president. I think we ought to know what he's doing. And they said, no, you can't come in even though you're a life member of the Republican Inner Circle. I said, why not? You don't live in New Hampshire. I said, oh. I said, if that's the case, how's Mr. Walker going to get in here? Because he's from Wisconsin. It is so sick. And I'll tell you, you know, I've said it before, I will do anything it takes in a peaceful way to get this important information to the American people. And Raleigh has had a big play in this. And I'll tell you, if anybody wants signs, please let me know. And you've seen them up, and there's going to be more going up. I ordered another 300, because 167 of them were stolen from Ipswich to Hampton Beach. And you know, it's one thing. Let's say I'm for nuclear power, and you're against it. That's our right as an American citizen, right? But when people start taking away our right to express it, that's a whole new ball game. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I guarantee it, Mr. Obama is coming here because he has an obligation to get here. And I've written him letters. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it. You're over.
Yeah. And I'd like you to, I do want to say that I'm very proud of Senator Tarr and Representative Hill and Sheriff Cousin for standing up for what they believe in, even though there's some people, I'm sure, that tried to not have them do it. And I'm still waiting for Governor Baker, who I shook hands with January the 7th, and I'm waiting for the Markey, and I'm waiting for Jeannie Sheehan, and I'm waiting for the governor of New Hampshire to get back to me, because they haven't done it. Now, there's no place for fence sitters on this issue. Either you believe that the Seabrook nuclear plant can evacuate people 365 days a year, or you don't. But you can't sit on this. Thanks for your time. And I was, I am passionate about this. I
Okay.
really am.
We are out of time, Steve, so
All right, fine.
I've got 2 more appointments, so. Okay,
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I think what we probably are gonna try to do with that
Uh-huh.
petition that you've got there, I think we'll turn it over to our public safety issue people.
Thanks, Steve.
REMA, Raleigh Emergency Raleigh Emergency Management?
Oh, not FEMA, I hope.
No, REMA.
Raleigh.
FEMA, okay.
Police chief, fire chief, board of health, whoever wants to get involved. We'll let them take a look at it, make a report back to us.
Okay, just so you know this, one more thing and I'm done.
Hurry it up, Steve,
You
hurry it up.
know the mock drill that FEMA had for the Seabrook plant, you know when they have it? When the icicles are on the beach, not when the bathing suits are on there. It's unbelievable.
Okay, Steve, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Well, some people have come here, to listen. They might have a few words to say. Can we let them do that?
Well, it's gonna have to be quick, because I've got other people waiting.
Chairman, should we vote that to go to REMA?
I'd like to have a comment on this. My name is Tim Toomey, I'm the Hazardous Material Coordinator for the town of Raleigh. I'd like to thank you very much for your efforts in making this a safer country and bringing this to light, that there's a lot of safety issues that need to be. And I would really encourage the Board of Selectmen to stand by you in your efforts. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, the people you really want to thank, and I appreciate your comment, people you really want to thank are the whistleblowers. That's who we want to thank.
I agree with you.
Will I entertain a motion to turn it over to the REMA and
I'll give you that
Public
motion,
safety
Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
motion made and seconded? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Where'd Larry go?
Dave just.
Dave went out. Okay. Okay, so we got a joint meeting with the Board of Water Commissioners and Fire Chief Jane Broderick, Police Chief Robert Barker, Highway Surveyor Patrick Snow, and Conservation Agent Brent Bezlak to discuss Prospect Hill access. If we could have those folks come in.
We voted to send that to REMA.
Okay. Okay. The chairman calls for a joint meeting with the Board of Water Commissioners by roll call vote.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor by roll call vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye, Dave Peterson.
Aye, Robert Snow.
Aye, Robert Mary.
Aye, Joe Perry.
Aye, Stu Dalzell. Aye, Tim Toomey.
Okay. Several of our town department heads have brought up concerns over the condition of the Prospect Hill access road. We have letters and photographs that describe and show the state of this road. This road is used by several town departments to access the water tank and the town's emergency radio communications. We need to discuss a collaborative approach to repair this road. The general fund will be needed to cover part of this cost. And I open it to discussion. anything to say? Chief, you wanna kind of start it out where
Well,
you seem to?
I guess we kind of started the ball.
Rolling?
Last fall, we went up to do our annual, semi-annual check of the radio building. Captain Emery went up and found out that the road had washed out a lot over the course of the year, to the point where it was almost impassable for the four-wheel drive vehicle to get up to the top. He wrote me an email, I sent it forward to the Board of Selectmen, and Bob Snow and Captain Emery went up a couple of weeks later, and some of the pictures that Captain Emery sent me, the same locations, it got even worse. So it's gotten to the point where getting up there is gonna be something you can't do safely. With our radios up there, something needs to be done so that we can at least get up to the top to, you know, deal with the repeaters of both police department, fire department, and the light department have their radios up there.
Okay. Chief?
Mr. Chairman, just.
I'm echoing the same thing, you know, our communications are vital to the town, and the repeater is on the top of the hill, and that's pretty much it. If the radio goes down, we need to be able to get up there somehow. The other thing I'd add is that there's a backup generator up there that needs to be fueled on occasion, and I don't know how, you know, it'd be one thing maybe you could hike up yourself if you didn't need too many tools, but you're not gonna carry fuel up there. You know, I don't know how many gallons it is, but it's a lot, 250 gallon anyways.
Yeah, probably. Okay. Is the water department got anything to say, or?
I think the water department and the general fund should kick in on this 50/50. Because so many departments use it.
Okay. Have you got any estimates yet, or as to what it possibly might cost?
I believe we had some rough estimates, somewhere around 25 to 30.
Okay.
140,000 for gate, fence, trimming and security.
That's everything, but
Then we cut it down to 75.
That's correct, but we had 3 quotes, I believe, and they're all around 25 to 30, not including the fence.
How's the security of your equipment up there?
It's in a fenced-in area with the cell phone tower.
Okay.
So the same security for all the carriers that are up there is what we have. It's fenced in, well, locked, and only, I think, AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, and us, and whoever else is up there has a key for it.
This is a situation that is gonna require engineering, or is it something that we can go up similar, almost to what we did to Misery Farm Road and
Dave, I
haul
really,
some gravel up
I
there and spread
would
out?
defer that to someone that does it. If we're gonna put in some kind of a drainage or something like that, it would probably need some engineering from a novice's point of view, but I really couldn't tell you.
On the I'm gonna interject, please, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
On the 14th of January, I went out there with Captain Emery, and we went to the gate, opened the gate up, and we walked up, and I took some pictures. Captain Emery, you can see here, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
And I showed these to you before. I took them with my iPad.
Yep.
And then Captain Emery showed me pictures back at the fire station of what he took all the way up. And it seemed from the old water tank down, that's where the most erosion has taken place on that road. But from the old water tank up all the way to the top, it doesn't seem to be as bad. As the runoff, it really gets bad from, like I said, the old tank down. And it's caused deep erosions. And as you can see, Captain Emery in that picture,
Yeah.
he is probably about a foot down in a gully.
Mhm.
So
I know some of the,
I deemed that we shouldn't have gone up that day, okay? If there was an emergency, yes, I believe we could have got up there and got up and serviced whatever needed to be serviced. But saying that that road is in, needs to be addressed as soon as possible.
Needs decent material, grading with the ground, and a
Yes.
swale on one side or the other. With dams every so often coming down to slow the water down to the swale.
Okay.
And brush trimmed.
And the brush trimmed back on the road.
Okay, speaking of that, Brent, do you have anything that you,
Well, yes, if I may,
Yep.
I'd like to contribute some direct observations that result from 2 examinations of the site. Water Department Superintendent Mary Beth Weiser alerted me to the situation. Also, the commission had permitted construction project at Paul Glenn's property, which is at the base of the hill and directly abuts the access road where it starts from the layout of Haverhill Street and then interfaces with the town property and right-of-way as it makes its way up the hill. I have distributed a memo to the selectmen previously. I made copies this evening, if you'd like me to redistribute that, as well as with the detail from the wetland survey of the abutting property, which specifies where there's been a direct impact of road washout to the wetlands.
Mr. Chairman, you have
There is a- there is a
the
copy of
February
that letter in
2nd
our
memo
package.
is.
Are there any of the commissioners here tonight that would like that?
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Brent.
okay.
So the situation at the bottom of the hill is a little different from the top of the hill, but if I may, I'd like to start at the top of the hill and work my way down, because that's where the runoff originates from. And the observations tonight about where the abandoned tank is, there actually is significant erosion directly above that. And I'd like to offer, Commissioner Dalzell made an observation, and I'd like to expound upon his observation, and that is, you folks have been kind enough and asked me to immerse myself in stormwater, which is part of my responsibility to the commission I do, as part of my responsibility for the stormwater erosion control bylaw I do, and which is part of my responsibility for the MS4 permit through the EPA, I do that also. So I'm going to talk about stormwater because I think that's the crux of the situation here, and everything else is just kind of subsidiary and all resulting from the impact of stormwater. Stormwater needs to be diverted at the very top of the hill. The roadway from the tank and the cell phone communications facility starts at a fairly reasonable grade, but it reaches a certain point where that slope changes. Water can still build up and follow the ruts of the access road, and that channels it down the hill. And there's a lot of opportunities. You've heard of the phrase divide and conquer. Well, I'm going to change that edit a little bit and say divert and conquer. And so water at the top of the hill could be diverted off of the road at a couple of opportunities where first off, there's a swale towards the top of the hill. If you have your back to the tank, it would be on the western side. There's actually a small residual swale there that probably hasn't been maintained in years but exists. There's a couple of opportunities where the topography of the road matches, is relatively the same as the terrain on either side. So that would allow opportunities to divert water off of both sides of the road, maybe not at the same spot, but in increments going down. So one could send it off to the right in one spot, go down another 150 to 200 feet, send it off to the left, and do that on the way down. Once one gets to where the abandoned tank is, there's actually a depression, and there's enough area of town real estate there that a sediment basin could be set up to further capture water, because that's right at the point where the erosion starts getting really pronounced. but it's also at the point where the terrain opens up and under town control is enough of an area to put a sedimentation basin to basically capture the water, slow it down, let the sediment settle out of it, and then slowly release it off to the western side. And then as we go down from there, there's again another couple of opportunities, one on either side of the road, where the terrain is equalized to the road, where one could, again, divert water off. In other words, you wouldn't allow it to gain speed, you wouldn't allow it to gain in volume, because you'd be stepping it off at different points.
Okay.
So that's the roadway going down. And I think the proposal, I was given an estimate from TW Excavating. I think they kind of acknowledged that most of this diversion can be accomplished without a lot of excavation, because I know there's concern of underground conduits, either be it communications lines or be it just electrical lines or whatever. So that's why I was looking for opportunities where one wouldn't have to do a lot of excavating, one would just have to do a little berming and angle the water off. When one gets down at the bottom of the hill, where you go from the gate to just the gravel access that goes to Haverhill Street, there appears to be a water diversion ditch coming from the state property that heads towards that access road. And I believe the washout of that section of the road that occurred with gravel going on to Mr. Glenn's property is actually because of deferred maintenance and debris that built up in that ditch.
Culvert, okay.
Yeah, about 20 or 30 feet before it actually goes to the culvert that goes under the access road. And the culvert does have some debris in it, but it's only about halfway obstructed, and that could very easily be cleaned. Mr. Glenn is concerned about the gravel that ended up on his property.
I was gonna ask you the question, where does it go now? So, I guess we
Well,
just found out.
it goes through there, and Mr. Glenn's project involved some reconstruction of the stream corridor further down, where he was experiencing roadway drainage from Haverhill Street.
Okay.
Also comes across, and there's a drainage easement onto Mr. Glenn's property, and it was actually joining with this runoff from Prospect Hill and causing him some erosion problems, which he mitigated for.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure that any active construction mitigation needs to be done, but just hand shoveling off the gravel that's entered into the wetlands on Mr. Glenn's property, bringing it back up to the road and appropriately stabilizing the bank. And I think if debris is cleaned out of the ditch on the state's property there, I think that'll open up the flow that goes to that culvert, and once the culvert is cleaned out. Again, this is kind of not wanting to shut all the water off to one side of our tower access road, because that might end up going down and being intercepted by that ditch, which if its capacity isn't increased, then
Right.
that would result in a problem at the lower part of the
It
hill.
also increase erosion in a different spot, so.
Well, right.
Yeah,
But usually slowing things down, decreasing or at least not allowing the volume of runoff to gather and gain speed also usually cuts down on its ability to move away roadbed material.
okay, that sounds like a plan. Pat, you're sitting in the back row, very quiet. Have you got anything to add?
No, I completely agree with Brent on his assessment of, especially with the drainage aspect of it. If you can just try to fix the road, but I think as everybody knows in this room, you're just asking for another problem later on. If you
Well, it's,
fix the problem and install the drainage properly, it should be a lot less maintenance on everybody else, or a lot less larger bill if something happens later on down the
I
road.
mean, the issue's been there since the tank was put in, the tower was put in.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't too bad when it went to the first tank because it was a shorter area.
Mhm.
But once they put the tower up there, and that's when it really started to give us an issue.
That's a very steep grade going up that second portion of the hill, so that does allow the water to really build up some steam coming down the hill there.
Yeah.
And the gully going up the center of the road is about a foot wide right now.
Yeah, so, and I
It's
know
all
we,
frozen, but
right, and we definitely had some heavy rains in November that definitely probably,
November, December, we had a
Yes.
couple of beauties, yeah.
that really, probably, I'm sure, dug it out quite well.
Yeah.
Well, is this something that we could, come up with an agreeable price and then split with, I think the board is probably more or less agreeable that we split the cost with the water department. So if we each pay more or less half, I think it's probably a determination of, do we need to have someone go up there and give us a professional opinion as to what needs to be done, or are we gonna try and do it ourselves in the hope that it survives? I'm not sure what the game plan should be here, but I have not been up there myself, so I don't know.
We need to come up with an accurate price of what
what
it
it
is
looks
gonna
like.
actually cost.
Yeah, and something that has,
Yeah.
prevailing wage rates. We tend to, people give us prices and then we all of a sudden find out that prevailing wage wasn't taken into consideration and we're short of money. So this is something that we at town meeting need to come up with a couple of articles, one from the water and one from the town, to appropriate X amount of money for,
I think someone would take a look at it and engineer it.
I think it'd probably be worthwhile to have at least some preliminary engineering done, so that we're pretty sure we're doing the right thing.
I actually, I wasn't able to get that for tonight's meeting, but I already have that in the works of getting some construction, for budgeting purposes only, estimates of what it would cost with all these components factored in. And I have asked them to break it down because I know that the town is gonna only, kick in for a certain portion, and the remaining, like the repairs of the water tank, that would be on the water department, but the other components, then we'd have a breakdown and everybody could see, and then you could make your decision as to what's gonna be a fair
Is
contribution.
that with Brent's recommendations also?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so she's
We'll take
using
into
as a
everything
checklist,
into
Okay.
checklist, yeah.
Drainage, the road, tank repairs, and security, and remediation of the little wetlands area.
Yeah.
We'll take all of that in.
Okay. Is there anything else? Yep.
I'm just a little bit concerned. What's the contingency now to get up there, in case we have to get up there?
Foot,
Yeah,
You could get up there. if
I don't
in
know
an
about
emergency.
right now, but.
Oh, not right now, there's about 2
There
feet of
is-
snow up there.
We have some, towns around us have vehicles that would be able to make it up there, so we'd have to make arrangements, but.
Yeah, 4-wheel drive, you can make it up there, but only in an emergency.
Yes.
That's why I hesitated when I was with Captain Emery. I said, no, let's not go.
it's not
Because-
the up, it's the back down.
Sits down, it's a killer.
Gravity works well.
Well,
It's harder going up than it is coming down. Believe me, I used to do it once a month to read the meter up there. So, I guess that's
All right, so maybe
Sounds
Mary
like-
Beth can come up with some
some figures, and we
figures,
can
and
put a
also
plan
make
together.
sure that you include the prevailing wage rates, that we could come together with a couple of articles before town meeting to hopefully repair the problem prior to fall.
Maybe everything be melted by July, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
So,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, we'll
Yep.
leave it that I'll work with Mary Beth and getting that information passed off to the selectmen so we can budget for that at the town meeting.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, you want to take a vote on that?
Would you like a motion, Mr.
Sure,
Chairman?
that'll give us, that'll make it legal, so. All those in favor of allowing our administrative assistant to work with the water department superintendent to come up with a cost benefit
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Chairman.
for the
I'll second.
Prospect Hill? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You folks on board? You want to take a vote?
Beth work with them on this?
I think it's in motion. It's okay. It's up to you. Aye.
Okay,
Good luck.
thank you very much. Okay, that takes care of that one.
Get you.
May I be of further service to the board this evening?
I think you're fine with us at this point, Brent, and we certainly appreciate your accepting that position
Yes.
for the wastewater management. I realize you appreciate us allowing you to do it, but we also appreciate you stepping forward to do it.
Well, I hope I'm offering the suggestions in regards to stormwater in the spirit of a long-term lasting, a job that only has to be done once and hopefully doesn't have to be revisited again.
We will do our best.
Brent, thank you for your
Thanks
detailed,
again.
thank you for your
Brent.
detailed assessment, Brent, of the road.
Okay, 7:30 appointment at 8 o'clock. Joint meeting with the Board of Water Commissioners to discuss fiscal year 16 water budget. The Water Board will review their proposed budget with the Selectmen. If, after hearing the presentation, the Board of Selectmen is satisfied with the budget, the Board of Selectmen can vote to recommend the budget to town meeting. However, the board may want to hold off on this recommendation until has time to digest the information and to receive more information concerning water rate study. At the conclusion of this agenda item, the chairman will call for a motion to adjourn the joint meeting with the Water Board Commissioners by roll call vote. So, is the Water Department prepared to present their budget?
Would you like me to, like, go through the capital first and then move to operating? How would you like me to?
What is easy for you, Mary Beth?
Okay. So I believe everybody has a copy of the proposed 4 items on the capital. We just talked about one, which was the Prospect Hill access road. And I know we're in agreement to move forward with this, but the one thing that we, as far as the funding, the water department was looking at funding that project by borrowing over 5 years for that particular capital. The other item that's on the capital is the paving of the access road for the water treatment plant. And the board approved and voted the $150,000 that I requested for that project. That particular project, it's good news. Everyone kept saying, why wasn't this included with the treatment plant? Well, we have an opportunity to fund the road through SRF funding, that there'll be, we're doing the research on if there's any administrative fees that tied with that, but we can add that right to the existing SRF, so that's a good thing.
It is a good
for the
thing.
town.
Yep.
So we are looking at funding for that one. We're looking at acquiring an F-350 truck with a plow. We do need to talk about that. The board, water board voted $52,000 for the vehicle, and I'm pretty sure everybody has the updated price. We had to go, I'm not a truck person, I'm a water, I make drinking water, so I relied on others that had more expertise, and we actually went and looked at the same way that the highway department purchases their vehicles, and it came in, the MHQ, and it came in at, the truck, came in at $54,329, and then, which we had thought $800 to $1,000 for the radio, so I would be asking the board to consider $56,000 for the complete replacement, so I guess the board would have to vote if they were gonna.
Mary Beth, I've been doing some searching on this, and there's an 015 F-350 Super Duty with a plow included. And, excuse me, I just tried to bring it up here and it's not connected to the internet here. For $38.55, and you can buy that for $36.55. They'll knock off $2,000, but all the rebates involved is how the plow comes into play. Instead of all the extra rebates, they include the plow. So even if you rounded that off at 37, and you wanted the utility body, and it was one at 53 and one at 63. You had the 63, the upgraded one, and 1,500 for strobes. So we need much less money. I have to admit, the rebates change from time to time, and these were excellent deals because Ford, whether it be Ford or GM, in the late fall, promotions, they get, like Fisher, Ford's breaking clutch and Salem does them for dealers all over New England. I've seen them 200 miles north of here from breaking clutch. And GM, I believe it's Madigan that installs them on the GMs. But they have some marvelous programs.
Stu, is that from a regular dealer?
Yes, it is.
Are they on the state bid list by any chance?
I don't know if they are or not, but what I'm trying to say is, if you go out to bid, you get a better shape.
We'll have to put it out to bid if they're not on the state bid list. So
Right.
I don't know how long those will
What I'm saying is,
last, but
anyone in this room, we can go buy a vehicle cheaper than you can from the state bid list because we can negotiate.
If I may, I mean, none of us are experts on writing bid specs for vehicles, and you really have to be careful how you write a bid spec, because you're gonna end up with, you know, with, are we gonna accept Toyota or Ford or Chevy? Because you're gonna get whatever you get, and then you're stuck with it.
The bid specs are all here, what you want.
But
Mr. Chairman, just from purchasing point of view, the Inspector General has told me, because in the past, many years ago, the Water Department wanted to purchase a used truck. So you can't have a make, a model, there can be no proprietary specifications involved in this. So you have to write down to the very minutia of every component of a vehicle. We're probably gonna have to hire somebody to come up with that, because you can't specify any make or model, and therefore you have to, if you make them very broad, you're gonna have an assortment of different bids coming back, and alternatively, if you make them very narrow, there could be components that are missing from those bid specs, from all parts of the vehicle. They're technical specifications, so they're usually professionally written by automobile engineers or something like that. That's why the Operational Services Division does all that. And then they go out to bid. And then cities and towns are allowed the opportunity to buy off those contracts, because we don't usually have the capability of writing technical specifications at that level for vehicles. So either we purchase through collaboratives, just like the ladder truck is being purchased through the collaborative that the fire chief is involved with, or we go to a state authorized dealer, because it's very difficult to do that, especially on a new truck. And if you do put in provisions of rebates and things, that's pretty easy. It's just the level of detail and the components that you have to describe. It will take a long time.
With the specs on the spec sheet here, it's pretty much boilerplate, and whether it be Ford or GM or Toyota, if they matched it, fine.
well, I think I'd be very careful, Stu, if you could save an awful lot of headaches if you could just go to the state bid and you can have it the next day, basically.
Yeah, but,
But-
this is a little different. It's not just buying a regular pickup. It's a utility body. Of course, the other way you could do it, but you have to send it out and have a utility body put on at a later date, but you're probably better off to get it with the utility body on it.
I haven't looked at the state listing, but I think you would probably find trucks with utility bodies and with plows set up to do that work, because the state certainly must use those types of trucks. Somebody in the state is using them. I'm sure the state is. They've got all kinds of vehicles that they need for various jobs. The one that comes to mind is the traffic light people. I'm sure they've got a utility body on their trucks. So it's that type of situation. I think we should, or you folks should probably look into it just a little bit more and see what's available out there from the state bid list.
What does the highway department do for,
I've looked at this quite hard.
We go through the state bid.
It's so much easier. You know, you call them up at,
You're, you could get yourself into a major problem if you miss something trying to write up the bid. If you miss a little bit of wording with a warranty or anything like that, you could be looking at a large bill later on if something mechanically goes wrong with that vehicle.
yeah.
Was a new dump truck put out on state bid or put out the bid?
That was purchased off the state bid.
And that's why I worked with the highway department to assist me, because they, you know, just purchased that dump. And so we got the quote from the same place that they got for this truck, and it was $54,000. The base price to it, without anything, for the same vehicle is less than what you got. I got $25,890 off the state bid for the base truck, and then you add on the add-ons, and it, you know.
The add-ons add up fast.
Yeah,
This one
they do.
was XL, but it had the power equipment package and the upfitter switches, and I could go on and on, the 18-inch wheels. This gentleman's been weaned on trucks. I've been around them almost 60 years. I can't see throwing thousands away, but
No, I agree, but I just have a concern where it's just so close, where you authorize the 52, I'm asking for 56, because these are prices we're getting right now, and, you know, when the vehicle year changes, and, I mean, not that I'm an expert, but if we go to purchase this truck, and the 2016 models are out, this goes away, the prices, we won't have enough.
if it goes to town meeting in May, you put it out to bid by the latter part of May or June, the 15s are still plentiful.
Well, the funds aren't available till July 1st, so
Correct.
technically you can't bid until the funds are actually available, so you have to wait till
All right,
July 1.
July's still plenty of 15s around.
Okay. I mean, it's your decision, but I just want to voice my concern that I actually have a price from the state bid, which is where I'm probably gonna go for this, and with the additional, the $1,000 for the radio, it's 55 plus 1,000 for the radio installation, is 56. But I just wanted to make you aware of that, but if you wanna keep the 52, that's fine.
What's the best price you got to, with everything?
With everything, 46. But don't, I have to be fair. Rebates change. But with the plow, you get the plow $1,000 cheaper because they call that upfitting. So they knock off, if you get something with a truck, they knock off $1,000, things like that. But the rebates are not cast in granite, but they've been around quite a while. Sometimes they get better. And the long and the short of it is, if you put it out to bid in July, and they still have some 15 plow trucks left, you get a better deal. That's all I have to say.
Well, it's a $10,000 savings.
I would just recommend that we buy off the state bid list, and I understand Stu's argument for price. But I think we know exactly what we get. We buy cruisers off the bid list, we buy highway trucks off the bid list.
Cruisers are different. They have dozens in stock. This is something you wanna change the body on and so forth. But you take a look at it and see what you can.
Well, if the bids come in,
I hate to throw thousands away.
if the bids come in and doesn't meet the specs of the board can reject it, can't it? The bid?
So you can refuse to accept or reject all bids.
I'm gonna have to.
So you write it.
You know, I'm gonna have to, hire the assistance of some kind of organization to help me write a bid spec to purchase this vehicle, so there'll be an additional cost added to the 52,000 for some kind of engineering consultation to assist with this.
I don't think it's that complicated.
I don't wanna be responsible for writing a bid spec that I am not comfortable with writing, and I would have to, with anything else not comfortable doing myself, I would have to hire a consulting engineering firm or some kind of firm to assist me with, writing the spec. I won't write this bid spec, cause I don't wanna be getting something that, you know, I'm
No,
not-
it gets complicated,
It
it
is.
really does. I mean, it comes down to the size of the brake shoes and all kinds of things that you gotta keep an eye on. And the state has already done all that work.
That's right.
They have, and I mean, they're buying something and issuing a bid for it and allowing the towns to participate in that bid because they feel it's a good vehicle and it's what they need. So, I mean, if it's good enough for the state, I would think it would be good enough for a community. And it's so much simpler, so much easier to do.
It's more efficient, you know, it's, you know, you have your price, you put your order in, you're
Yep.
done.
And if it's
Bid
in stock, you
process.
can get it within a week.
Right,
It's
and the
right
bid
there.
process, and then you have the opening, and then, as Mr. Toomey stated, if you reject the bid, now what do? Rewrite it and start all over, and by the time you go through all of that, it's already time to prepare the budget for the next fiscal year, and you don't have your vehicle,
Right,
so.
okay.
I mean, I understand where Stu's coming from.
I
You
do.
know, I understand for saving money,
Mhm.
but also about the bid system through the state. You know, you can talk to Pat, and Pat, I think you explained it well tonight. It's so much easier to go through and let them, otherwise, as you said, Mary Beth, we'll have to hire somebody to put that bid spec together, and that's gonna cost money to put, that doesn't come free. So I think it's much better to go through the state bidding system. That's my opinion.
That would reduce the $10,000
Just streamline this,
difference between the price.
but still,
If you
I
had
understand where you.
Had to
where you're
hire
coming
somebody
from.
to do the specs.
Okay.
On the left, is there any other questions or comments
I'll
on
make a
that?
motion that, the plow truck, 50,000, not to exceed $50,000,
You already voted on 52,
and I just changed it,
okay.
if I get a second.
I'll second that.
Favor?
Aye.
If you did have somebody write the specs, how expensive could that be? Somebody does it every day.
Who's gonna write the specs? Are we gonna have the town administrator write the specs?
I would say no, because we haven't got enough time for the town administrator to do what she's
I
doing
don't
on a
know, I'm not
day-to-day basis.
qualified.
I know.
No, there are companies out there, that do technical specifications, because you gotta spec it to the, down to the components, and it can't be tied to any, you know, specific, manufacturer.
Oh, they're gonna be generic because you can't.
They have to be generic, and they're gonna be a lot of components of a truck, motor, seats, width, materials, you know, everything, it's pretty extensive.
Well, if they feel they can do it. I mean,
I wouldn't know how
I'll
to
go
do it.
along with it, but I mean, I just,
We have the combine system set up, so the town is now set up on combines, so, it just facilitates the purchase of so many things now.
Mary Beth, have you called the state bid?
That's what I handed out, that was what the MHQ, this is how the highway department purchases their vehicles.
Okay.
So you should have a copy of this.
How
Or did
much
we-
less would a 3/4 ton be? Couple $1,000, $1,000?
I'd have to get a price on that
Alright.
for you.
Not much difference between the two. I used to have a 1 ton with 3/4.
I mean, the reason we went with such a large vehicle is because it's a dual purpose, because we want it to be, you know, use it for our second plow truck, you know, to help with the, you know, take care of the access road if the
I
can be
understand.
found for the winter, so that's why we
I
went
just
with.
want the best bang for the buck, that's all.
Oh, and I do too, I agree. Anything else on that? Okay, the last item on the capital was, the paving and the fencing and the complying with the 2012, consent order from the Conservation Commission at 401 Central Street. And, at our last water board meeting, we had discussed that we were already appropriated the $60,000 for the paving in this fiscal year, which the board voted, to move forward with, using those funds to do that. Originally, I had requested 100,000 just in case, because there was a lot of discussion, yes, no, yes, no. So the board decided to, reduce the 100 to 40, which will improve the drainage, take care of all the other issues, above and beyond the paving. Chairman Ricker, one thing, when we were discussing, and you had mentioned about you, suggested that I pave to the back, you know, where the garage doors are. I just will tell you that $60,000 that I've got originally does not include, you know where the loading dock is? The paving stops there. So-
I just feel that we should go at least a strip in front of the garage doors, or we're gonna stop busting the concrete coming out, and concrete's
I
gonna cost
agree,
a lot of money.
but I'm letting you know that the $60,000 quote I got does not include any additional paving material to do what it is, so it might be more, and I haven't had a chance to get the additional cost. So the 60,000 is just to pave, from the original, but not that portion that you had suggested, which I only went to the loading dock to try to keep the cost down. I'm in agreement with you.
No, it's just, you know, where they come off the ramp,
Mhm.
just so it doesn't bust the concrete up.
Absolutely,
I
I'm in
mean,
agreement with
it's a 10
you.
or 12-foot strip down through. you know.
An apron out there.
I'm in agreement that that needs to be done, and that, you know, with the potential, down the road. But I need to let you know that the $60,000 is not enough to add that to that job. That I would need additional funds to do that. You've authorized me the 60 to do the front, and that's all it's gonna cover. I can't have that paving crew come in and do the additional work because the board did not authorize me to do
Maybe
so.
they're gonna sharpen their pencils a little better come springtime.
So I just wanna make you aware, so, and I could put that in as something separate down the road, but as part of that project, it won't be getting done this year, cause I don't have the funds for it. Just wanna, you know. So, what the board had decided to do was to take the truck and the $40,000 for the remainder of the upgrades, to pay for that in the FY16 budget, purchase the vehicle outright, and the same thing for the drainage. So that would bring, because it's not all, I don't quite understand it, cause it's something that Sue Bailey, the town accountant, we're only gonna be putting, in the capital, which is actually capital, is $90,000. It was originally 92, but, the board just voted to decrease the truck by 2,000. So that brings the capital request to $90,000, for FY, 16. Anybody have any questions on that?
Nope.
So, the first, section on the budget is wages and salaries. And, the increases there are for a few things, COLA, and then, the cost of living, and the, step increases based upon the union contract. The water board voted to, allow me to move forward with hiring a, water equipment operator to bring the, excavations for routine and emergency repairs back in-house. Currently, we're contracting them out. The other thing that popped up last week, Debbie, did we get able to get copies of those to everybody, the letter,
The letter from the DEP.
my letter to the water board, and I CC'd about the, additional staffing?
It's in here.
Okay. So you should have a copy, of a letter that I wrote, to the water board. I had begun discussions with the DEP regarding the operation of the new treatment plant. And we talked about the staffing plan and staffing needs for the department. And I wrote a memo, back in September, with, explaining what the existing plan was and then what I thought potentially the future plan may or may not be. Very beginning discussions. We're at a point where, in order for us to run the treatment plant, it has to be manned, because it's, we're running it in a manual, mode. In order for us to move to the next phase, which is to put it in automation, we have to meet some conditions. I spoke with Tom Mayen of the Mass DEP. I had thought I would have heard back, in order to report, to the both boards this evening, but, basically the concern at this point, and these are preliminary discussions, which, we should discuss, is we have one primary operator and 2 secondary operators. That's what the DEP is recognizing as certified staff to run the department. The concern is that it's not enough, because if they let us go to automation, I mean, we spent an awful lot of money to put in a SCADA system. If we weren't gonna go that route, there's no need for SCADA. We could have manned the plant. So their concern is you have an operator who is on call, and he has a call out from the treatment plant, and he's going to respond to the treatment plant. That same operator is also on call to respond if there's a main break, a service leak. What is that operator supposed to do if he's in the middle of taking care of the treatment plant issue and he receives a call and water's gushing up in the street? What is he gonna do? That same crew that is responding to the treatment plant to fix those is the same crew that needs to dig and make the repair. So the concern is, and I did bring this up before, is that we need to be looking at splitting the department into the 2 divisions, treatment and distribution. And what that would mean is that there'd be staff taking care of the treatment plant. You'd still have your primary and secondary. They would be on call for that. And then you have your distribution, a primary and a secondary. They're not the same people who are responsible for being on call and responding to the distribution. That is in line with what the DEP is gonna be looking for. Now, the board already voted to bring on a heavy equipment operator. Working with the personnel board and the union, that's down the road, can just be reclassified to that person could be considered the secondary operator for the distribution, which means we would have to bring on a total of 2 more people and bring on a distribution foreman who would / primary. I've included in the letter that has the revised on the salaries page what it would be with adding both the positions, and the total wages would then be, which would include the superintendent, is $467,798.47. And when I had, what the board had voted on, the water board, was $412,848. So there'd be an increase in about $55,000 to the original request. So the wages and salary would go up about $129,000 versus the plus or minus 59 that that the water board had originally voted on. But that is a concern because we have another option. We can just stay in the manual mode and run 3 shifts, and that would be a huge expense to the water department because we'd have to staff the plant for 3 shifts, and that I don't think we want to go that route. So I just wanted to bring it up there, and the time is here if we vote to bring on the additional body. But I'm going to be limited as to when I can run that plant. If we don't want to bring on that person, then I'm going to have to reevaluate the overtime with my existing staff, I'm gonna have to, increase the hours, rather than an 8-hour shift. In order for us to get water out of that treatment plant, it's 3/4 of the town supply. In July and August, we go home for the day at 3 o'clock, the water stops flowing, and we rely on well number 2. And, we need the demand during those evening hours, we don't have it. You had it before because you had 3 pump stations, water pumping into the system at 3 different locations. And those things came on as they needed. We're operating completely different from what you did before. We have well number 2, the pump station, which is gonna be, remote operations, it's an unmanned, but you have that treatment plant that's gonna be, the switch is gonna go off at 3 o'clock and that's it. So, it's a big concern. It's different from what Raleigh's used to operating. It's a treatment plant. It's not the same thing as a pump station. So, I would ask that we consider this, because it's important. It's the fire protection for the town, and the drinking water. It's public health and safety, so, any discussion?
A year ago, we were talking the budget. We were talking about running the treatment plant from 8 hours to potentially 12 hours. And that would be more than enough to give us enough water. So now you're saying that the DEP says that that's not gonna be enough to provide us sufficient water to provide the town with water during the summer months?
It's not about the water, it's about the amount of water. It's about, we're gonna be, if we can't put the plant in automatic, meaning that when we go home at 3 o'clock, the plant is on standby. We don't have to do anything, it's on standby. If the system calls for an additional source, the treatment plant's gonna ramp up and supply water to the town. Right now, when we leave at 3 o'clock, it's not going to do anything. When are we gonna get called in? When we get a low tank level. We'll get a low tank level. And then the operators are gonna have to come in and turn the plant on and try to play catch up to fill the tank. So that's what's happening right now. If we get, right now that has actually happened a few times, that the operators have gotten called for a low tank level at like 11 o'clock at night, and they have to come in and turn the treatment plant on, and stay there, because now we can't leave, to fill the tank.
So somehow, long before you got here, sounds like we were sold a bill of goods that this thing was gonna run by itself with no extra help.
We have
And
that
now all of a
system there.
sudden we're finding out that that's not the case, that we really, I'm not saying don't hire the people, because it sounds like we're gonna have to hire the people. But I mean, it's just it seems to be a mismatch of what our expectations were when we agreed to build a $12 million plant versus what the expectations are now that the plant's online. And it sounds like we were, I don't wanna say sold a bill of goods, but we were kinda like sold a bill of goods, I guess, is what you're telling us.
Well, the
And
other,
it's gonna be, in other words, it's gonna be expensive.
well, the other thing too is that we're responsible for more with less staff. Before you had that treatment plant, the water department, every position was filled, and you had less. Now we have more to take care of. That treatment plant, as Chairman Ricker mentioned at our meeting, there's 141 maintenance items to deal with on the Paul filter system alone. That's one component of the entire treatment plant. That's a lot of man hours. Plus, they have to go out and flush the hydrants, do the work orders, do the dig safes. I mean, there's a lot of work. And, we've made some mistakes in the past, we've missed appointments. We've been trying to stay on those, but these types of things, are gonna continue to happen, because we're gonna have to start to pick and choose what's important. And what might be important to the customer at that particular time may not be important to us because we have a crisis at the treatment plant, and I just can't go change that person's water meter out. And we may have missed an appointment, and we may have failed to contact that customer, because our mindset is not on that, on the customer service. We're thinking about fire protection and drinking water, so we're trying to get that component. That's reality, those things could happen. You know, not having enough bodies to do the work that needs to get done. I mean, ultimately, it's gonna be up to you, but I just want everybody to be aware that, these situations are gonna come up, and, we'll be limited on running that plant, and that's $12 million, that's the clean drinking water that you paid for, and if we're limited, you're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get the best bang for your buck, if you will, if we're limited on the usage.
Were these limitations brought up when this plant?
We thought the automatic thing was gonna kick in, but now DEP's saying that we can't use the automatic
Until
because we
we,
have more people.
Was the water board on board with hiring the extra people?
Well, when we found out that, the DEP's not gonna let us go with just what we have. We do
This
two
wasn't,
things.
was this discussed with the water commissioners before this?
We just found this out.
this just happened as late as this past Friday, the 13th.
No wonder.
So I wrote a memo to inform the board. They got a phone call that they need to get the memo to discuss, and I got the.
So the
memo today.
DEP just put this together?
No, I have been discussing with
Okay,
them
you've
over
been
the last
discussing.
several weeks because, gearing up for summer operations, I wanted to see what their thoughts were. As part of the process, when you have a new treatment plant, that you operate a certain way until they're comfortable with your operations, that they'll put you on a trial
Right.
with testing your alarms during the day and that kind of thing. And then, I'm not sure that the DEP was given the full information on how Rowley operates, with one primary, one secondary,
Mhm.
responsible for both distribution and treatment. I'm not quite sure, because I would think that if these conversations were taking place, that we may have been a little better prepared. I'm not sure they took place.
Shouldn't our, when we built this, the people we hired,
Listen, Sampson never told us we were gonna need more people.
We had to fight with them just to find out how many we actually needed.
Yeah.
I
But you said
disagree.
Didn't the
there is an automated system.
didn't the clerk of the
That's it.
works
Yeah.
talk to
But
the
but
DEP?
DP,
Excuse
We'll
me,
let us
Joe.
use it.
Didn't the clerk of the works talk to the DEP about this? We had several clerks of the works, didn't we?
Jim?
Yeah, all this was hashed out with Weston and Sampson and the state, well before the construction broke ground. And everybody was familiar with this plant and the capabilities because of Weston and Sampson's expertise. And
Well, you
plant
served
can
on the
operate,
commission at the time, Mr. Toomey. Do you remember this?
the plant can operate with, without people in the plant, but they have to be monitoring it. There's alarms on it. That's what I was led to believe.
I guess I don't understand his process. I mean, we were told that we could control this from our iPhone, sitting on our bed, going to sleep.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
now they
that's not
told us the
happening.
13th that we can't unless we have more people.
That's not happening. How long does, we had 3 wells that were up and running. The 3 wells did a fairly decent job of keeping the tank full even 24 hours. Most of the time was made up at night. What's the process when you have to go through the treatment plant? Does it take longer to make the treated water to get it up to the tank?
It's a good question. You still have the same exact sources of supply you
Right.
had before the treatment plant.
I understand that,
You had 3 separate pump stations,
yes.
and they could operate independently.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure they were automated, and came on,
Yep.
met the demand at night, so when everybody got up in the morning, everything's full up. Now you have well number 3,
Mm-hmm,
and your well number 5 well field
right,
is at the treatment plant.
exactly.
That's 3/4 of the source
Uh-huh.
going into one building. And then you have well number 2.
Right.
Well number 2 can come on and off as it did before,
Mhm, yep,
because it's a pump station. But now you have the treatment plant. It's a different animal. It's fully automated, and yes, that's correct, you can, from an iPad, your phone, you can have it on there. That's in what they call remote operations utilizing the SCADA system.
Right.
The DEP's concern is not at this point, and it's preliminary, and I'm gonna stay on top of this, and I will advise everybody as the discussions continue. But for my preliminary, they're not gonna allow us to operate it from the iPhone or a laptop computer. Because if that person is monitoring and they have to go into the treatment plant, and now they're gonna get a call from the Raleigh dispatch that they've got water bubbling up, what do? Go take care of the high chlorine alarm on the finished water that's could possibly violate a drinking water regulation, cause public health? Or do we let the water bubble up down the street and watch the tank drain until we can get people in to come and shut that down? So that's their concern. One person cannot handle, and they look at it as, what's the worst case scenario? Because we know they happen. We've already been in that situation where the on-call person was on a main break, and the dispatch called because we had frozen service. And what do? You know, do we go on thaw this, assist the customer, or do we stay at the main break and continue digging? We've already been in that situation. And that's with having, 3 people available to respond for the whole system.
Right. My concern, I think, Mary Beth, is if you don't hire the second group, the distribution group, and you shut the plant down at night when they're not working, and you get a fairly large conflagration fire, and the tank goes down, how long will it take to send somebody up there and to get enough processed water to fill the tank?
It'll take days to fill it that up.
So
If you drain a tank, it takes,
I don't see you have any other issue. All you've got to do is hire an extra group of people. You've already got one secondary extra and hired another primary. Now you've got your distribution group and your plant group, and everything should run fine.
that's what I'm proposing. The water board already voted to give me a heavy equipment operator, which through the process would be reclassified as the secondary for distribution. What I'm asking the water board is to vote to add a primary distribution foreman.
Okay.
And that would resolve the issue, and we would have 2 licensed operators for distribution and 2 for treatment. And then they each respond to their own, whatever they're responsible for, and there's no issue.
From my perspective, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, come on, guys. We got to get this thing running and running right.
Is the board agreeing to vote for that?
Not me.
I'll make a motion to.
Excuse me?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Toomey, what'd you say?
I'm not gonna vote for that.
Why?
Well, during the week, there's plenty of people running that plant, right? We got 3 people or 4 people now?
Yes, they're,
Okay, so it's the weekend is the issue.
no. During the week, the operators have responsibility for both distribution and treatment. So one day, somebody could be reading water meters or doing dig safes that come in. We have to go out, we have the customer service work orders that come in through Pennachuck that we go out and take care of those, changing out water meters, running process samples, they're shoveling snow. It's whatever the department needs for the day, they're doing everything. They're not just at the treatment plant. One person stays there. Matter of fact, 2 of them have, because they've been running some process samples. But 2 guys have been staying at the treatment plant, and the other 2 guys have been off doing the other stuff.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if there's a water break, everything goes down?
We have to shut the water plant down.
You
And-
can't run that thing? You can't run it now without some person in there?
Right.
Okay.
So with the staff I have, if we had a water main break during the day,
Mhm.
the treatment plant would have to be shut down so that the 4-man crew could go and dig on the main break.
Well, can the water treatment plant run with one person at the controls?
I wouldn't have one person, they'd be responding to the main break.
So you can't sub out a person to go to the main break?
But the board's direction was to bring the digging back in-house, and that's why we're hiring the heavy equipment operator.
What do we do in the past? We brought in the street department if we needed manpower in an emergency.
I can't speak for what happened in the
Okay.
past, I can only speak for what I've been experiencing since I came on board.
We gotta stop and think the highway, you can't rely on them every single day. They've only got 3 employees.
They could be out plowing or doing.
How long would it
whatever.
take to drain the plant if all the wells shut down? How long would it take to drain the tank if all the wells
I
were
think
shut
that
down?
question was just asked by Mr.
No,
Murray.
for-
How long would it take?
To refill it.
To drain the tank,
How long would it take to drain the tank?
meaning if I just opened the valve and drained it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that off the top of my head, I'd have to do the
Well, I
calculations
mean,
to figure
this-
out.
that's all hand in hand with all the information I was requesting 6 months ago to be able to evaluate a situation like this.
It's
And I haven't
useless
been got
information,
through-
Tim, it's useless information.
No, it isn't.
Of course it is, you're saying drain the tank. Well, how are you gonna drain the tank?
I'm not
You're gonna have
saying-
10
I'm not
hydrants
saying-
open,
no,
or
I'm
you
not
gonna
saying
have
drain
one
the tank.
hydrant open?
What I'm saying,
You just said you were gonna drain the tank.
no, I says, how long does it take to drain the tank?
Right, how long does it take?
If you had to shut down.
If
the
you had
treatment-
10 hydrants open, it would be done in probably
Oh, okay,
a very
that's
short
Not a
time.
realistic situation, Mr.
Of course it is,
No,
of
it isn't.
course it is.
Without
This
causing-
building catches on fire, the Congregational Church catches on
10
fire,
fire hydrants.
you'll need at least 10 hydrants.
Okay, so if there's a fire, is there a contingency if there's a fire right now? To bring in extra people
Extra people for what?
to treat the water?
Not if the tank is full.
Okay, so the tank is full.
It won't take long to drain that in a bad fire.
Okay, what did we do in the past? What did Groveland do, and Georgetown do?
We had 3.
I have no
They
idea.
opened up the cross connect. They fed the system, so there's a contingency there.
You talking about the Georgetown fire?
Yeah,
That time they opened up the,
yeah.
They
We
opened up the pipe
the,
going into
We opened up
Georgetown,
the cross connect so they
which
could
was a
feed the
6-inch main or 8-inch
Yeah.
main going down.
I'm not sure of that.
Okay.
So there's a lot of contingencies here, we're not looking at.
So my question then going back to is, Roy, you're in favor of it, Tim, you're not, Stu, are you in favor of hiring the extra help? Because obviously what I'm getting at here is, we're not collecting enough revenue now to pay for the current operation. Obviously, there's gonna be an increase in rates to cover,
Waiting for the rate study to come back.
so
The lack of
when the rate
revenue.
study comes back, and we need to know, the finance committee meets tomorrow night, Larry?
Yes.
With the water board,
Yes.
and you guys are meeting tomorrow night? Before the water,
No, I haven't.
so I mean, we need to know what the situation is. I mean, we're down to nitty gritty now. If Tim's gonna vote against it, I hate to put Stu on the spot, but the town needs to know that it's got coverage to give us the water we need if there's a major fire or a major pipe break. I mean, let's face it, if those mains on 133 are old and tired, if you get a major main break on 133, you're gonna have no water heading for that tank from the treatment plant. We're in trouble.
We had a serious break there, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
By the Prospect Hill there?
So I mean, the Board of Selectmen needs to know what the water board's proposal is to take care of this problem.
What my point is that if we need somebody in an emergency, we can hire somebody in an emergency.
Hire
Well, when
somebody?
there's,
And we can also open up a cross-connect to Georgetown with their permission.
if you go looking for somebody in emergency,
They're
that
not
water
always there.
tank's draining fast. It's hard to find somebody when you're in a jam.
We have a bunch of things that these guys can be doing in the other part, with the valves that we have screwed up, the hydrants we have screwed up. I mean, it's not like they're gonna be sitting around doing nothing.
Larry, do you have something to say?
Yes, last year when we were looking at this and under the 8-hour operation, if you look at just the hours that are needed, okay, it demands a primary and secondary operator on distribution, a primary and secondary on operation. The hours are there, okay, to run the plant for the 8 hours that was agreed upon last year, backing down from the 11 hours, which was probably a more realistic approach. I hate to say it, but it's really a no-brainer. You know, the hours dictate it. Whether you staff it with somebody off the street or whatever, or an operator that you have some confidence in, that's your call.
I mean, what I don't wanna do, Larry, is get halfway through the year, you know, get into September and October and discover that, wait a minute, we should have hired 3 more people. I'd rather hire the 3 people and then next year say, wait a minute, we really didn't need them. Okay, fine, we can get by either an automation or some other program. The more we get into this plant, the more we're finding out.
When it becomes automated, we may
we've got a
not
plant,
need
a $12 million
operator.
plan here that's
Okay.
a complicated
But we're not there
operation.
The DEP is actually, you know, it's in their court right now.
They're telling us what to do, what we need, and to sit here and second guess what the DEP is telling us to do, to me is, we're buying a
We can't
pig and a
second
poke
guess
and
them.
we're looking
They're
for
the-
trouble.
They're the governing thing.
Let the DEP decide then. Let the DEP write a letter saying this is what we need.
The DEP doesn't run our budget, we run the
Doesn't
budget.
write letters, Dave. Doesn't
But
write
they
letters.
are, they.
They'll run it, they'll just come down and, what the
Shut you down.
DEP will come down and tell you is, okay, tomorrow you're hiring these 5 people, you figure out how you're coming up with the money.
That's right.
They're not gonna worry about how to pay for it, we have to worry about how to pay for
I
it.
don't believe they do that.
As far as the operation of the facility goes, where this is, like I said, a new facility, they will dictate as to how we will be able to operate going forward. Whether you spent all that money on a SCADA system.
I'm reluctant to vote for this in one sense, but the public safety, I will vote in favor. Hiring another person.
DEP will come down and will tell us to do this, okay? Believe me.
So we have a motion.
I sat in DEP's room when they fined us $25,000. I don't forget that day I had to sit there during that.
They have the upper hand.
Absolutely they do.
So let's understand that right now. DEP will do that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say one thing? I have sat on this board for 7 years. This is the most competent, comprehensive presentation the Superintendent Weiser has given all 7 years I've sat here. I want to thank you for your presentation tonight before the board. Thank you.
So, I forgot where we were. So I think we can move down to the expense line now. So the expense line, just before we get going, last year in the budget, line 7, which was the maintenance, was line 8, the maintenance line. This year, it's the same line, but it's now line 7. And we've just changed the name a little bit, trying to streamline the budget. Maintenance is still in there, but it's called water department expenses / maintenance. And in your handout for the description of the budget, there is a complete detail and breakdown of what line 7 actually, covers. And it's the same thing that was presented last year. I just took the information and reformatted it to put like things together to make it easier to follow, to see what the types of things that we are actually purchasing. So, line 7 encompasses communication, supplies, services, repair, maintenance, admin, and energy. And each one of those lines has a dollar value, and the total request for that, line 7, is $653,700. Does anyone have any questions on the individual?
Mr. Chairman, could I just point out that Superintendent Weiser has spent an enormous amount of time putting this together in a logical fashion. So, you know, we have the expertise of a well-seasoned water superintendent who could put all those expenses that we had in just a long laundry list in sub-budget accounts now into these categories that make sense. And only somebody with that kind of expertise would know logically how they should follow. So she spent a lot of time, and she worked with the town accountant on that for several days. And if you look, you can see now how much it makes sense and how organized it is. And I really have to say, we were so impressed with that. And, you know, we knew, you know, this is her first year on the budget, and we just can't even believe the improvements that we're seeing, and having all that data organized, you know, in a fashion that, you know, shows that this is a utility, and you can kind of see it, you know.
Exactly.
Whereas
I mean,
we kind of tried to
You can
go by
actually-
a best
you can
guess.
actually read this budget.
This is a fantastic job.
I haven't been around as long as Bob, but this is the best budget I've ever seen come out of the water department. Just the way it's laid out,
Yeah.
explanations we have, just,
And she's got it in an entire workbook with all the formulas linking to each other.
right,
So the formulas are there in the Excel spreadsheet, and so you can trace it back.
right. And the next time it goes in, next year when she needs another
Oh,
one,
it'll be
it's all
easier and
there.
easier, yeah.
It's all there,
It's
just push the
it's
button.
the amount of time to.
Can you tie that into the SCADA system?
Can't turn that on yet.
So the expense line, it makes up line 7, 8, and 9. And line 8 is engineering, operations, labor.
I'd like to say something about line 7.
Can you let her explain the budget, or,
She's gone on to line 8.
okay,
I want to talk about line 7.
all right.
I requested from my board, I wanted to get some information about the expenditures from line 7 last year. Because every time I pick up a spreadsheet in the last 3 or 4 months, it's been a different spreadsheet from what we used last year. So I wanted to get some information. I still want to get that information about line 7 expenditures from last year. And so I didn't vote on the budget. I voted no on the budget because I didn't get the backup on those line items. So, I mean,
Tried to explain, Tim. We get a printout every month from town hall, right? Every other week, we have to go down and sign the bills. If you come down to sign the bills, you'll see exactly where the money, no money goes out of there unless the warrant is signed. It's right there in front of you every 2 weeks.
No.
If you don't come and get it, that's not my fault.
I want a breakdown for line 7.
She's not your personal
From last time.
secretary.
No, she isn't. But there's $130,000 that was spent out of those lines. And I want that information before I vote for this budget.
I ain't getting it there.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman spoke it. I just wanted to make that comment.
No, it's there every other week. Come down and do what you're supposed to.
So Mary Beth, in other words, you take it on line 7, energy, electricity down near the bottom. You're asking the FY16 request of $100,000. That's for including the treatment plant, Central Street. That's the entire request for the entire department. You're not breaking it down by how much you need for the treatment plant versus Central Street versus something else. You're talking about putting everything together so at the end of the year, we're aware that we need $100,000 for electricity needs for the entire water department, including the treatment plant and anything else that's, so that as the year goes by and you draw down, you'll know exactly where you stand in that budget line item.
Yes, one of the things that, that I've done is, the way the budget was presented last year, you had actually a section for the new water treatment plant, which that's the next section we'll talk about in the budget, underneath department expenses. So what I did is, with this line 7, anything that was common for the department that might have showed up as a separate charge at the treatment plant line, I took it out of the treatment plant line, and it went into this expense line 7. And if it was, you'll see like here it says chemical feed pumps and some other things, SCADA. Those things were taken out of the treatment plant budget, but it's here. So you'll see a 0 in that backup page. So yes, that is for the department. So over the course of the next year or so, when we do the presentation, the goal is to have a more complete, comprehensive breakdown, getting rid of that separate treatment plant, but all those treatment plant expenses, they're not gonna go away. They're just gonna show up in here as a sub-account in one page rather than having the 2 separate. You'll still be able to see, you'll still track it in Peachtree, you'll still know exactly what you're spending for each thing, but it was just gonna be on the one page. What I did was, I only kept things that were specifically for the treatment plant, on there. And then as we go, we'll gradually move them over into just the one page.
I have a question.
Yes?
So this is a combined thing from those 2 sheets from last year, both maintenance lines, maintenance of the treatment plant, plus some added things.
This is,
I'm not talking about last year's budget. So the last year's budget figure was 389,000. You increased the maintenance, and I'm not sure why. It's increased $272,000.
so the treatment plant expenses, I guess we're skipping ahead, has actually decreased by $106,000, and that decrease in the new treatment plant expense line, the subtotal on page 1, has decreased, but that money has gone up above into the total operating expenses. It's included in that 287 up above. So I decreased the water treatment and moved it up to the expense line. I just reallocated the funds to a different line. Does that answer your question?
The maintenance spending last year, what was it compared to the budget?
I don't have that March 4th expenditure report handy to give you, but you have a copy of that. All the commissioners have a copy of that actual expenditure report, and that will give you the actual totals of what we've spent to date per line. And the same lines that are here on this first page, which is the operating budget going to town meeting. You have that with the total spent to date as of March 4th.
March 5th, correct?
The report that was printed out by the town accountant, and that's the official record for the town accountant. It's not something I did. It's dated March 4th, the date is in the upper left-hand corner. And that's a report, Chairman Ricker, that you pointed out that you get. So going back to the expense line, engineering and operation, that's the line where we might, if we have to hire a contractor to come in and install a hydrant for us, or if we need any, big subdivision comes in and I might need some assistance with an engineering firm just to check the bells and whistles. And then you'll notice the billing and contract services, that's the Penachuk contract. So this next year's is $58,000. for that contract for FY16, and that was the contract that the Water Board and the Selectmen signed to continue the services of Pennachuck. And the total of that expense line is $761,700. I think that's like more the most confusing part, because line 7 has so many different subcategories. But I think over time, as we start adding more to it, it's pretty self-explanatory when you read down what it is we're looking for and the dollar amount, and then you can see over, the years. Some of the items, I broke it down even further this year. If you see a 0 in the FY14 and FY15, it doesn't mean that I'm asking for additional money because I've created a new category. In a previous year budget, for example, it might have said it was lumped together, janitorial and trash removal. So they're the same, but they're not the same. So I separated those out, and then I just put the costs associated with each of those, services in that line to make it. Now you can really see. You can track that even further. The next line is the new treatment plant, and there's actually a backup sheet in your budget packet for that. So on that page, that dollar amount is made up of replacing one Paul filter for $21,000 in FY16. Service/Paul, I'm requesting $100,000. I'll just go through the list and then I'll go back with the explanation. Service other, $100,000. Treatment chemicals, $60,000. Waste solids removal, $25,000. Service Hawk, $8,000. And that's it. So the $21,000 is to actually purchase a Paul filter that we will store in a safe location over the next few years. That was something we talked about, purchasing a filter. So when the replacement time came up and the life expectancy of the filters had expired, we'd be ready to make that change. The $100,000 for the Paul, that covers, we had talked about this, the service contract with the Paul Corporation to have 4 visits, 24-hour emergency on-call tech support. And that's for the first year. And that's about $50,000 for that contract. Plus, we have to pay for their airfare, room, and board because they don't live next door. So, and that's a variable. The remainder of that is for me to have money to be allowed to purchase parts to make any repairs and keep spare parts on the shelf so that, something you can't grab at 2 o'clock in the morning going down the street, we have it to make the repair. Because without those filters, we have no plan. Service other is for me to have annual contracts to have the VFD service, the pumps, the motors, the generators, the compressors, and any key component of the operation to have in between and what the operators are doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. This is, the experts come in, they go through everything, they have equipment we don't, they align something, they put stuff back into tolerance in between what we're doing. So that's what that contract is for. The solids waste removal, that's your tight tank. That's where we're backwashing all of the discharge from the Paul filters. That has to get backwashed twice a month. It's approximately $1,300 a month. And I dropped that down, but I was trying to be, realistic of how much we actually, so it's twice a month, $1,300 a month. Service Hawk, that is all of our Hawk equipment, whether it's the online pH probes, the turbidimeters, and then the benchtop equipment. It's $5,002 for a service contract to have them come in to do various maintenance. Each piece of equipment has a different maintenance schedule. The ones that are for compliance purposes, they're quarterly, and it's part of the regulation. They've got to come in and service the turbidimeters. They have to be serviced by an outside person quarterly. And it's actually a cost savings in the long run, because when they come in and your equipment's under this contract, parts are included, which is very nice. So that's basically the breakdown of that, and it's, $314,000 for the treatment plant line. I didn't put any money in for private treatment because we're not gonna be doing contract operations unless I find out otherwise, so that, I put that went down to 0.
Mr. Chairman, I think, I know the board was always concerned about, this investment in the water treatment plant and the Paul membrane system and ongoing maintenance of it. I think it would be helpful to know that we're really locked into this, service contract with the Paul for $100,000. That's just 1 year. Would that decrease over time, or is that always gonna be $100,000 we have to, it's so much money for this annual maintenance of this system. This is astounding, it's really expensive. Do you think over time, does it go down?
Yes, so included in the budget packet is, the Paul's costs associated with the varying, contracts. So for the first year where it is new, we should go with the 4 times a year. If we're bringing on new people, part of that too is any training. If we have turnover in staff in the next year, they're here 4 times to train the new people that are coming on board. Next year, if everything goes well with this in the full year of operation, I would recommend we go to twice a year, which it drops, it's dramatic. It drops it down to like $25,000. A little more easy to digest that. And then if everything continues, we could go down to just like every other piece of equipment, annual. They come over, they give it the once over, and that goes down to about $13,000. But don't forget it. We also have that unknown of airfare, food, and hotel. So it does get better. It's just what level of comfort we're going to be at as we operate this, to have them available. So it will decrease. We mentioned the rate study earlier. We are getting there. Should have something towards the end of the week. The rate study, what it's going to encompass, it's going to actually predict out for 3 years what we'll need to operate. So we've actually done some predictions based upon certain percentage increase over the next 3 years. So we're going to look at that, and we'll be getting back on that. So I should have something really soon for people to start taking a look at. So that is coming.
Okay.
So that's.
Larry?
Is there a shelf life on the Paul filters?
Not that I'm aware of.
So if we buy it, it's good for at least, we'll say 10 years, and it's not gonna go bad in 1 year sitting on the shelf rotting.
Well, that's what we were told, because, that was the plan, so to lessen the blow, in 10
Right.
years, we need $400,000 to replace filters.
Right,
We
I
were
know
gonna-
that was the plan, but I just never heard that there was a shelf life to the filters.
And I haven't either.
Okay,
They're deactivated, so I would imagine, they're gonna come sealed and plugged,
right,
and until they're actually placed in their slot and activated, I would say that,
right, they should have some
Yeah.
long shelf life.
That was an excellent question.
It was an excellent question. So that's pretty much it. We have the, also included in here is the breakdown of the debt. The revenues that were generated. I did want to point out, on the department revenue page, in FY, in trying to get a handle on, what actually we're bringing in for revenue, this page takes into consideration the pluses and the minuses. And I just want to draw everybody's attention to the rate discount section. In FY15, we're looking at $80,000. Now this is what we give our customers a discount. So we're losing $80,000 in revenue right there with the discount. And it's projected out that we'll be losing $100,000 in FY16 with the discount. I just wanted to point that out. So that affects the bottom line, because you can't count that, because it's not there. So I mean, that's a large dollar amount, where we're such a small utility and every penny counts. That's a lot of money in the big picture of things. So I just wanted to point that out. And right now, the projections for FY 16 is 1.7 million, as opposed to what was projected of 1.9 in FY 15.
So we're $200,000 less than what we thought?
We're actually short $300,000 for me to carry out the remainder of FY 15. We don't have the money for me to spend what was allocated last year. So I will be staying on top of that, and what was approved in the budget last year, I'll be watching that right to the penny. I will not allow that to go over. We are on a spending freeze in the department, only what is necessary for emergencies, chemicals, electricity, and the things we need to get through. Now, I can't guarantee that what we need to do won't take us there, but we're not spending anything, you know, other than what we need to make the water flow. So it's important, because we're $300,000.
We appreciate that.
Do you have any figures on how much we produced by March 15th of 2014 per gallon, by gallons?
Not on.
So we can, look at where we are at with March 15th of 2015.
Are you wanting to know what the total system delivery is year to
Yeah.
date?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with?
Well, it's a function of the revenue, isn't it?
Well, it is, but there's a lot more than that, because I might produce 85 million gallons, but I'd have to go back and calculate all the losses in between, the non-revenue, and what I will be handing out the board, which I think you will, if you let me finish,
Yeah.
which I think you will appreciate out of everybody,
Yeah.
is I have done the annual statistical report submitted to the Mass DEP. I am going to be getting copies to the board. It will have all of the data, water we produced, broken down by customer category, and I think you will find a lot of answers to the questions that
Okay.
you've been asking in that report. I'm hoping to have that to the board for the next meeting, which we actually haven't discussed yet, but the next meeting, whenever we're gonna have that. And I think you'll appreciate that, Mr. Toomey. So, it has all that information.
Well, I'd like to see where we are this year compared to where we were last year. So
If
I
the
don't-
board would like to vote to have me do this project, I'd be more than happy to do it if that's what the board would like.
Mhm.
If we're perfectly honest, I think there are higher priorities right now.
If there's nothing else, that concludes my presentation.
Well, thank you.
That was a lot.
Okay. So this is going to the Finance Committee tomorrow night, right?
Yes.
So do we have any objections to sending it to the Finance Committee, or any questions or comments?
I have to say, again, comprehensive, competent. So good to hear the water department come in here. Again, I've sat here for 7 years, and to see a presentation like this flow like it did, I can't say enough. Thank you, Superintendent Weiser.
Okay. So we're at the conclusion of this agenda item, is that correct?
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if the board is ready to take this up and make a recommendation on this budget plan, knowing, we don't have that revenue component. And obviously, as Superintendent Weiser has brought up, the revenue estimates that were presented last year at town meeting by the water board are certainly not on target to where they need to be right now, and that's just on the sales of water. It really isn't the collection issue that they've been addressing. So, I know that it's very important to take that hand in hand to know what your revenues are to support the budget. And if there's a concern now based on what they calculated last year, I know they hired, Mr. Russell, he prepared a page of something that said if everything stays the same, then these rates are fine. Well, it didn't, because you had a water treatment plant coming online, and obviously all those new expenses are really stressing the revenue side. Thankfully, the accountant has said that the expenses are well within the appropriations set at town meeting. So I don't know if you're ready to take an action on this budget yet, to see that data come in, and if you want to digest this at this point.
Any comment from the board?
I recommend, Mr. Chairman, that we table this at this point until we get a better idea of the revenues.
Okay. Any
I would
discussion?
second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, motion made and seconded to table the presentation to the Finance Committee. Is that what you want to say, Dave?
Yeah, in other words, they can go to the Finance Committee and make their presentation, but our vote on it will be tabled until we get a better
Do we get
handle on
a
the,
view of the revenue?
the revenue.
Okay.
Right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
I would move that we adjourn the joint meeting of the Water Board and the
I'll second that.
Board of Selectmen.
Okay, motion made and seconded to adjourn the joint meeting. The vote will be by roll call. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi, Dave Peterson.
Aye, Robert Snow.
Aye, Robert Mary.
Hi, Joe Perry.
I Stu Delzell.
I, Tim Toomey.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Good job.
Awesome.
Nice job.
Okay, our next appointment is at
Patrick, you've been very patient.
8 p.m. Our next appointment, 9:21. So Pat, you're up.
Come on up, Pat.
I recall that act, but, I'm gonna present my budget. You gentlemen, the so would you like me to start with the highway department first?
Sure, if that's the first one, let's
Yep.
go with it.
So, the expense line has been level funded, no increases to that for next year. The wages for the employees, which are the union employees, which was negotiated in their contract, that is a 2.25% increase for them, as well as the non-union employees, which is the on-call truck driver and the seasonal laborers. There was a 2.25% increase to the highway surveyor's position for cost of living as well.
Okay.
I move that we okay the highway surveyor's budget, the highway department.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the highway budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next one I have is for snow and ice removal. Gentlemen,
No snow next year, right?
fingers crossed. As we discussed last year, I believe you gentlemen wanted to increase that as incrementally as the years went on. So there was a 25% increase put in for that, from 100,000, which was this year's, to 125 for next fiscal year.
Any discussion?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve that at $125,000.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The next one I have is for the town land maintenance. and that was level funded as well at 3,500.
Any discussion?
That's on the mowing for the, oh, okay.
With that, basically takes care of the landfill mowing now at this point. And that has been less over the last year or so, just because it's been so dry during these summer months, so it's only been needed to been mowed, once the last few years. But I do get concerned that if we do get a wet spring or, a good growing season during the summertime, that it's gonna need to be mowed again. That's the only reason I leave it at that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
For the tree department, the, the expenses were level funded as well. And there was a 2% increase to the tree warden's salary as well.
I give you the motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve that.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Sorry it wasn't as extensive, but quick and to the point, yeah.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, Pat, we appreciate it.
No problem.
That was good. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, Pat.
We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, next is general business number 1. And it's a letter from Police Chief Robert Barker requesting to appoint Melissa Alaruso. And I'm assuming it's for dispatch.
This is
Yes.
a reserve dispatcher,
Reserve dispatcher,
so
okay.
it's on-call dispatcher.
Reappointments, Honorable Board of Selectmen, I respectfully request that you appoint Melissa Alaruso of Middleton, Mass. as Reserve Dispatcher and Matron effective March 16, 2015 and expiring June 30th, 2016. I think. Close enough, anyway.
Yeah.
This is necessary to address ongoing staff issues, the promotion of a full-time dispatcher to a full-time patrolman, and the resignation of a full-time officer who was dispatch certified, has depleted our available dispatch manpower. We are still finding it necessary to fill open dispatch shifts by forced overtime and reassignment of personnel from patrol. Miss Alaruso was a fully certified dispatcher with the town of Topsfield Police Department who was displaced by the opening of the Essex County Regional Dispatch Center. She is currently still employed with Topsfield as an auxiliary police officer and worked for the Essex County District Attorney's Office as a legal assistant for 6 years. Ms. Alaruso will require a minimum amount of training to become current to state standards. As a reserve dispatcher, she will only fill in for shifts left vacant by sick, vacation, and holidays. So there will be no cost to the town beyond her orientation training. Since many shifts are currently being filled at overtime rates and she would work at straight time rates, we expect to recoup the cost of her training. A background investigation was performed by Lieutenant Stephen May on Miss Alaruso with satisfactory results. Robert R. Barker, Police Chief.
I move we appoint Melissa Alaruso as a reserve dispatcher and matron.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Letter from Department of Agriculture Resource renomination of Inspector of Animals. We have received the annual nomination form from the State Department of Agriculture Resources of the town's animal inspector. The board needs to vote to nominate Reed Wilson as the town's animal inspector. Once he has been nominated, we will sign the attached form in the witness of a notary, and we will mail the form into the Department of Agricultural Resources.
I give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. General Business 3. It's a letter from Independent Living Center re-annual legislative breakfast. You all have a copy of that in your folder. I don't believe it's necessary to read the whole letter.
If I would, Mr. Chairman, I did go to a meeting of the Independent Living Center of the North Shore in Cape Ann. They're a wonderful group in Salem, and they do an excellent job. They don't have anybody from the town of Raleigh receiving their services as of the present time, I believe. At least it was a year ago. And but they do. Our town comes under their jurisdiction, and I would like to support them, and I would like to go to this event.
Okay. That would be very well. I think we should have a representative there, Joe. Thank you very much for volunteering. So do we want to put?
I'll second.
Take a vote. Do you want to second it? Sure. Do we have a motion?
Was
that a
Joe
motion?
made
Make that motion.
You made the motion.
I thought
Bob
Joe-
seconded. Okay. Getting late. All those in favor of letting Joe go to the awards meeting?
And the annual legislative breakfast.
Annual legislative breakfast. Very good.
I'll make that
Sign-
motion. Oh,
signify-
you wanna make them? I'll make that motion.
He made the motion.
Oh,
You
he made, I'll
seconded it.
second it, okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. Motion carried. Okay, that takes us down to new business. And new business number 1 is discuss rule of necessity in signing bills payable and payroll warrants for the light department. With the recent resignation of Jack Cook, we do not have enough signatures to sign the light department bills payable warrant and the payroll warrants because both Robert Murray and Robert Snow are on the Raleigh Municipal Light Plant Board. We need to institute the rule of necessity and vote to designate Robert Snow as a selectman signatory on the RMLP bills payable and the payroll warrants. Robert Snow will not sign these warrants as light commissioner. The Board of Selectmen needs to vote to institute this measure until a new selectman is elected and sworn into office. So it sounds like I'll be signing the light department side of the payroll and warrants, and you'll be signing the selectman side?
Selectmen side.
Is
I
that
give it
okay?
a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Abstain. Okay, sounds good. Is it a legal vote?
I did good.
You did good.
Okay.
Okay, discuss annual and special town meeting warrants. Let's see, the annual town meeting warrant closed at 4 p.m. today. Debbie will now start working on the annual warrant. The board needs to vote to open a special town meeting warrant and to have it close at 4 p.m. on Monday, March 30th.
I'll give you that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, takes us down to old business. Old business number 1 is discuss RFP for lease of camp area and review addendum. Okay, we have 2 organizations attended the mandatory site visit last Tuesday at the YMCA, the YMCA in Ipswich and the YWCA in Newburyport. In order to be eligible to submit a proposal to lease the camp area, organization had to attend the site visit meeting. Both the town administrator, Deborah Egan, and town administrator, Amy Loudon, have a conflict of interest relating to the YMCA in Ipswich. Debbie is requesting the Board of Selectmen issue an addendum changing the language in section 5.0, proposal evaluation process and review criteria that will read as follows. All proposals received by the deadline will be considered in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B, Section 16. Only those proposals which satisfy the minimum criteria for responsible and responsive proposals will be reviewed and ranked by, and we are going to eliminate the town administrator and assistant town administrator and 2 selectmen, and add to that, or change that to by the Board of Selectmen, under the competitive evaluation criteria below. Final designation of the camp and activities organization will be made by the Board of Selectmen. This documentation will be made in consideration of and remove town administrator's recommendations and we'll change it to of the criteria set forth below. Interviews with proposer meeting the minimum valuation criteria may be conducted at the direction of the town, and the town reserve the right to retain any consultants to assist with reviewing the proposals following the proposed review process, interviews and references checks, and receipt of any additional information requested of the proposers by the town. The Board of Selectmen will identify the most beneficial proposal from a responsive and responsible proposer. The town administrator will notify all proposers in writing of the decision. The words that are deleted are in strike-through, and the words that are added are in bold underline. The Board of Selectmen needs to vote to accept these changes and issue the addendum.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Make a declaration that I'm a member of the Ipswich Y.
Okay.
So I'll recuse myself.
All right, that's taken.
I'll make the motion.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And one recusal. Okay, old business number 2, discuss physical 16 Triton approved budget and town's physical 16 budget. Okay. Selectman Joe Perry attended last week's Triton School Committee meeting in which the school committee voted a lower budget than what was originally proposed. The budget approved by the school committee lowers the town's assessment increase from $540,449 to $385,626. This lower amount is still far above the selectmen's request to split the town's new tax revenue of $431,246 to an equal 50% appropriation. Unfortunately, the Triton increase absorbs approximately 90% of the town's estimated new tax revenue in fiscal year 16. With a steady pace of decreasing enrollments, it is becoming harder and harder to understand why the Triton budget has grown to almost $28 million. This assessment is being absorbed into our budget, with the result being that no operational expansions, in any of the town's departments can be considered in fiscal 16. The real concern of the town is what happens in fiscal 17, 18, and 19, if the town continues to receive these kinds of assessments. Joe, do you have any comment to make where you would go into the meeting?
I would just comment on some of the statements by the various school committee members and the superintendent and assistant superintendent. They felt that it puts a real strain on their ability to provide a level services contract to the students, but that they acknowledged that some of their class sizes were low, that they could combine some of the class sizes into larger class sizes, but it did mean some teacher cuts.
Okay.
And they were reluctant, but they acknowledged the fact that the towns couldn't afford the big increase.
Okay. Any other comment?
I think when you look at the surrounding towns in the town of Raleigh, and there was a study done through the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, that the median income in Raleigh went down last year. And the taxpayer, the person who's going to pay this, there's been federal income taxes been placed on them this year coming up. Taxpayer is exhausted, and everybody's going into their wallet. So I think that needs to come into this picture. And again, student enrollment has gone down. I'm not against education. I think education is very important. Towns just don't have it.
Right. No, I have to agree with you, Bob.
And the taxpayer.
Education is very important. It really is.
It is.
Unfortunately, we need to come up with some kind of a scheme so that the schools can continue to offer their best performance, but the town has to survive also.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I don't know what's going to happen, whether we can get the state to come up with some funds, possibly. it hasn't worked so far, but we'll just have to try.
I would like to make two more comments. One, I think that we do have to work on the state. They have level funded the Chapter 70 amount for over 10 years. And it is killing our ability to pay the budget for the Triton. And I don't think it's fair to the schools, and I don't think it's fair to the town for the state to do that. And I also think that it is unfair of the comparison that the Triton tried to make in the tax bills for the comparing Rowley with various towns. Comparing us with West Newbury in the town of Amesbury is
Again, the median income of the town Raleigh went down.
right.
And even Topsfield was one of them.
And it's just, I found that the towns that they picked were ridiculous.
Okay. Yes, Larry?
Just for fun, I looked at the last 10 years, 2005 to 2015, and factoring in, these are Triton numbers, their costs versus what the pupil costs are. It averages out to a 79% increase per student. Sorry, that was my bad eye. Over the 10 years. So the population of Raleigh has stayed about the same, but we're required to spend 79% more per student.
And that's in the last 10 years?
In the last 10 years.
Well,
And the inflation rate over the last 10 years cumulative was 20%. So if we keep going like this, we'll be bankrupt in another 10 years.
Very telling figures. Very good, Larry.
yeah, that kind of works out. Thank you. Works you out, doesn't it? Okay.
And the average person, Joe and Sally taxpayer, hasn't got a pay raise, really. I mean, they'd be,
No.
what, 1.7%, if they're lucky?
Their pay
Private
raise is
sector?
keeping their job the next day.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right. And then with healthcare costs and everything else added on top of that. I mean, in the private sector, it's very difficult.
Okay, any further comment on the Triton Rowley budget? Hearing none, we'll go on to the next item, which is fiscal year 16 budgets. First one we have on the line here is the fire department budget. And I believe at the last meeting, we did review this budget. And we held off the vote because we didn't have a quorum.
Yes.
So Dave, have you had a chance to?
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll
Approve the
second.
budget as presented.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any comments, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right?
Aye.
Opposed? I recuse myself. Okay, Selectmen's budget. This ought to be interesting. Debbie changed the Selectmen's budget to increase the stormwater compliance line from 20,000 to cover complaisance requirements under the Federal National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, NPDES permit.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Chairman, because the stormwater compliance is gonna be going up year by year, and this is the first installment of probably what are gonna be many over the years to come, so.
Yeah, what, did
I
we,
would recommend
were you the one that mentioned that they thought it would be?
Yes,
$20,000.
somewhere between 60,000 and $1 million.
So So I had a conversation, Mr. Chairman, with Brent, who, along with Pat Snow and Ron Keefe, have been attending a number of workshops in the that we're in that collaboration with Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. And those required classes and things that they're taking are showing that we're probably gonna have to get a plan in place in fiscal 16, and the implementation of any structural changes to any of the town facilities to be in compliance will probably happen in fiscal 17. So this will give us the ability to have a consultant come up with all of the items that we have to do, the cost estimates, what has to be done, some engineering work on how to make storm drains fall into compliance and everything, as you know, based on the scope of the workshops that we received from Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, the executive director, Dennis DeZoglio. There's so many areas of the town, some you don't even think about with the stormwater, that have to be in compliance under this new MS4 permit. So I appreciate the expense, but it's an unfunded mandate, and it doesn't seem that the federal government is willing to really understand that issue. The Mass Municipal Association has been pushing that issue to see if there could be some, compromise on how this will be implemented, but we're not hearing anything, so it will have to fall on the cities and towns.
Wow.
Yep. Fully agree.
Okay, I think
And everything else was within the budget guidelines. There was an unavoidable expense with the audit, but the audit has remained the same, and obviously the town's budget has grown much more, significantly in the past 10+ years, so
it's more complicated.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Will there be selectmen at the FinCom meeting tomorrow?
Yes, there will.
Okay.
I'm not sure I can make it. I got another meeting tomorrow night.
Do you
Well,
want me
with
to
one
ask
of
a
the-
question
Somebody should
then
be there.
or now?
I should be there, Larry.
We have the water, so it would be a good cross-section to have Selectman Perry for the general budget and Selectman Peterson for the water end,
Yeah,
if
that-
you can't make it.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll work.
Yeah, I should be all right. I should be able to be there.
Okay.
Okay.
If not, call
So
me.
what was your question again, Larry? You wanted to ask a question?
Well, I have a question on, I guess it was last May's article on fire and police study for $100,000. I noticed that in the appropriation, or in the expenses, that we've only spent like $261.
Well, that was the legal notice for the RFQ.
Oh, okay, so.
Yeah, we haven't awarded the contract yet.
All right.
The weather has kind of held up our process of evaluating the proposals. They're all in.
Right.
We just need to make some field trips, which we haven't been able to make
Okay.
because of the weather.
I just didn't, where it's such a large amount and nothing's been spent, I just didn't want people to feel like, we're appropriating a lot of money and nothing's happening, but, thank you.
Okay, the next budget is treasurer collector.
You didn't vote on that Selectmen's budget, Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the selectmen's budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we can go on to the treasurer collector. There again, at a quick glance, looks like it covers the
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
requirements.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Town hall and annex.
Give you that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the town hall and annex budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Inspection department.
Give you that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Shellfish and constable,
Mr. Chairman, those are not ready yet.
not available.
Okay.
So we'll put that on hold. Triton.
Based on the meeting last week, on the inspection department, there's no percentages.
I noticed that, it's just right now too. I'll do that. He's gonna be at the finance committee meeting tomorrow night, but I'll do the calculations and put them in there for him.
Okay.
Okay. We're still working on Triton?
Yes. Yeah, they did reduce the amount to $385,783. The capital assessment is down for a net increase of $369,795. But
Triton's better.
I'll make the.
I was tired. I
I'll
was
make the
probably on my
motion.
100th spreadsheet by then.
Just that one.
Yes.
Okay. We didn't take a vote yet. All those in favor of the Triton budget?
No.
Did somebody make a motion yet?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I did.
You made the
Well,
motion.
you made, I'll second that.
Okay.
Paul will second. Okay.
They actually vote that, Joe?
Yes.
They have voted.
They took the vote on the 11th. They had to have it done by the 15th.
Okay, all those in favor of the Triton budget signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
It was 7-1.
The next item, just the budgets, is streetlights.
I'll give
No.
you that motion, Mr. Chairman.
What did I do with the streetlights?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Okay, there it is there. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The addition of the town common lights, huh? I think it's worth it.
They usually give it back to us anyway.
Yeah, that will be voted on tomorrow night.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, Council on Aging.
Give that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Okay, let me get myself organized there again. Motion made and seconded to approve the Council on Aging budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that takes care of that one. Recycling.
I'll give you a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I'd like to see more people take advantage of that. You know, it's cut my waste budget down by 50%.
Okay. I don't see, I've got Parks and Recreation in my package.
Yes.
Should be, yes. Right here.
Mr. Chairman, I'll give you the motion on that. We really haven't had a chance to meet with Parks and Rec. The weather has been horrible.
Okay, they've actually.
We've had no
level fu-
chance to look at the fields.
Right, they're level funding everything on the
Right.
budget, so.
So I think we just, I talked to, what's his name?
Tim.
Tim
Tim,
from
the other day, I ran into him and told him that basically with the weather and everything else that's going on, he's been very, very busy with work.
Yeah.
That we'll just kinda level fund it and then try to work on it
Go from there.
next fiscal year.
Okay, so you want to vote that?
So I'll make the motion. so.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Next item is Brad Street and Girl Scout land property expense.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I talked to Debbie this afternoon about this. The Girl Scout property, we put it down as $10,000 in expenses. It was kind of a number we picked out of the air. The bids are out. Hopefully we won't spend any of it, but we needed to have some money available.
Yeah, I think we still get the outstanding, Dave, is that Title V
Right.
review. So,
And we just wanted to make sure that we had some money available. And on the Brad Street, that increase is, it just leaves us money there in case we need to spend some money for something.
Yep.
That'll line up.
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Handicap Committee. I'm not sure we can afford this one.
I'll give you the motion.
I'll second.
Just for the audience out there, if they're still watching us, hopefully they are. It's $190 and is being level funded, so. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Unemployment, blanket insurance, retirement.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman. They go up every year, as they have this year. You don't have any choice in the matter, so I'll give you the motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. And health insurance.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Chairman, based on the same thing. It's gone up 6.42%. Which isn't too bad, everything considered, but it's another one of those where we have no choice.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Before we take the vote, I just want to make a declaration that I am a recipient of the health insurance, life insurance, as a retired town employee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I recuse myself. Okay, the next item agenda is announcements. And the Central Street proposed reconstruction public hearing with Highway Surveyor Patrick Snow and Norman Brown of Bayside Engineering is scheduled for March 30th, 2015 at 7:30 PM at Town Hall. Okay. We're gonna, want me to read this whole thing?
I think if you would just read each event and the date and time, that would be fine. It didn't come in time to get it on the
Onto
announcements.
the agenda.
But it's just library events.
Yeah, it is a library event. I'm trying to find the dates here, but I don't.
There's 3 separate events.
Okay, there's the Songs of the Sea to be kicked off at the Raleigh Library Reads 2015. And it's March 21st, 1 p.m. For folk singer Roger Chicknell at the Raleigh Public Library, 141 Main Street. We have author Eric J. Dolan to speak at Raleigh Library as part of the Raleigh Reads 2015. That one is March 24th at 7 p.m. To produce a mini book, You Must Choose a Mighty Theme. Raleigh Read goes to the movies on Thursday, March 26th. Join us at the Raleigh Public Library, 141 Main Street, Raleigh, Mass. at 6 p.m. for a special viewing of the 1956 movie in which a whaling ship containing the brooding of a one-leg... Anyway, it's a movie on Moby Dick. Let's go with that one. You guys are killing me this late at night. And that's it.
You have a
Whoop, we got more on the backside. See, I knew it wasn't going to be over yet. The Board of Selectmen is reminding residents that they have the opportunity and the ability to clean hydrants near their homes. Hopefully, you don't have to do that anymore. Although if you do see some flags sticking out without seeing the hydrant, please give it a try. The town has the following vacancies: fence viewer 3 positions, wood lumber and bark inspector, and zoning board of appeals associate 2 open seats. Historical Commission, Historic District Commission 2 seats, Parks and Recreation Committee 2 seats. Open Space Committee is seeking members, and please, if you're interested in open space, please apply. For more information on these positions, please contact the Selectman's office at 948-2372. Raleigh Food Pantry is in need of donations. The food pantry is open Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. 7 p.m. And also, items can be dropped off at the library and the library will get them to the pantry. Town meeting is scheduled for May 4th, 2015, at 7:30 at the Pine Grove School. Rowley Recycles, Saturday, April 4th, 8:30 to 11:30 at the Highway Garage. Textiles, books, CDs, and various other items that are listed on RCM bulletin board.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, I got a question. Mr. Chairman, and I don't recall really, you asked me what I wanted, and I think I pretty well spelled it out in the letter that I left last week with you.
Okay.
And I wanted, really, for you to consider writing a letter to the NRC objecting to them extending their license until we have this hearing for first responders. And the other thing is, I don't think there was a motion on your suggestion, wasn't it? You were gonna turn it over to the safety committee?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
We did
Yeah.
that.
Oh, okay. I'm just concerned that I don't want this to fall between the cracks before the warrant's closed. And, I mean, is a deadline on when, you know, are you gonna allow me to be part of that committee and talk over what, you know, was in my letter? And I don't know why the selectmen can't take a vote on endorsing what Senator Carr and Representative Hill and Cousins is asking for in that hearing before the NRC. And I would like to see you do that. And, but, you know, obviously, you know, there's a lot of people concerned about this. This is a big safety issue. And,
Well, and
so I think something ought to be done on my request to the letter. And I thought I was pretty specific on that.
I don't remember you mentioning anything about a letter, and you mentioned safety, and it is a
No,
safety.
the letter I gave you
Oh,
last
okay.
week, laying out pretty much what I would like you to do.
I mean, you mentioned the safety issue, and that's what we're gonna deal with, Steve. We're gonna
Yeah.
talk to our public safety people.
Yeah.
We're gonna get their input,
Sure, that's great.
okay? So that's what we want to do at this point.
So is there a deadline on that? I just want to make sure it doesn't, you know, fall between the cracks before the warrant's closed.
Well, I'm not sure why you need the warrant closed, worried about the warrant.
Because we want the language in there that's in the national petition. That's what people are asking for.
Well, I'm not sure that we wanna put that in the town meeting warrant.
Pardon?
I'm not sure we wanna put that in the town meeting warrant.
Why not?
Because we haven't heard back from our public safety people.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, are they gonna get back to you in regards to that language, whether they approve it or not? And are they gonna get back in time so that the warrant is, that it can be put in the warrant?
I have no idea.
Well, that, you know, that's pretty important.
So, I mean, it's,
And again, I'd like to see you, you know, go along with what Representative Hill and Senator Tarr is asking for, and Mr. Cousins. He feels that we should have, the NRC should have a hearing before the first responders and the Massachusetts State Police and the New Hampshire State Police and the chiefs of police around the 10-mile radius, and have that hearing, certainly, and you ought to be, I feel, you ought to be against the extension of that license until that hearing is done. And then as far as the petition goes, and what we'd like to see in the warrant, that's a separate thing. But I mean, I think a decision's gotta be made on that and a vote, you know, and I don't see any reason why the selectmen can't go along with what Senator Tarr, Representative Hill, and Cousins is asking for. I'd like to see you do that.
because Senator Tarr, Representative Hills, and Cousins don't run the town of Rowley. They're not the chief executive officers of the town of Rowley.
Mr. Motion, I have a
I'm
motion
not saying-
on the floor.
Yeah, I actually,
Adjourn.
Dave has made a motion to adjourn, and I believe Mr. Snow has seconded it. And under Robert's Rules of Order, adjournment takes priority. So, I mean, I don't mind listening to you, Steve, but we gotta close the meeting.
Well, I understand that, and it certainly was an ambitious agenda to have, and you had a tremendous amount of responsibility. But we're talking about safety, and I wrote a letter to you last week asking for specific things, and I mean, if you're gonna do it, that'd be great. If you're not gonna do it, I think the townspeople have a right to know why. Okay?
Yep.
So if you could get back to me possibly, or do something next week on the things that I've asked for in the letter, I would appreciate that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.